Good evening. Welcome to our November 28th meeting of 2018. I'm going to begin by calling the meeting to order. I'm going to go right to item number 2, which is a public hearing on our 2019 tax classification pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 56 of the Massachusetts General Laws. We will convene a public hearing on property tax classification specifically to make decisions regarding the property tax burden to be borne by each class of property: residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal. Tonight we have our Chief Appraiser, Robert Bushway, as well as, do I believe all the representatives of the Board of Assessors are with us tonight. And do we want to invite them first to discuss this before we go through this motion? Yes. So I would welcome you all to the table. You come and join us. So.
Good evening, everybody. Bill Bennett, Chairman of the Board. So again, we're here for our annual meeting for the tax classification hearing. About a month or so ago, the board voted to go with option 2 on your paperwork there, which is a 1.5 shift, and which brings us to a residential factor of 0.97. We felt that was probably the most fair factor for both residential and commercial taxpayers. It put the burden pretty evenly on both parties. We also voted to, again, not have a residential exemption, as we've done in the past. And we also voted to not have a small commercial exemption, as we've done in the past. So if you have any questions, we'd gladly answer them for you. I know we have some new members that may not have done this before.
That's true. I have not been through this process before.
It's pretty basic. We try to keep the tax rates, reasonable for all parties involved, residential and commercial. I think if you look at your paperwork there, if we had gone to option 1, the difference between the residential and the commercial would be pretty steep. So we usually around 1.5, sometimes 1.55. This year, 1.55 just didn't really make any sense with the growth and everything.
I just don't know, did we have the same 4 options last year? Not the numbers being the same, but did we take option 2 last year as well, in this current existing?
So at the top, the very top bar, that's got the fiscal 18, which is our current shift. It was 1.55, and that was just the factor that we used because it, like option 2 this year, it tended to even out the tax burden between the residential and the commercial. So they're both increasing at approximately the same percentages. So like on option 2, the residential would be going up 3.4, the commercial 2.2%. The other options just they seem to fluctuate too much between the two classes, residential and commercial. So option 2 seemed to make the most sense this year, which is a 1.50.
Good.
With such little commercial influence in the town, it's difficult to put so much burden on them,
Good, Mike.
Oh, and so that's when you characterize it as the most fair. It's just because of the spread is the smallest between the two. Is
Correct.
That the idea?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Between the residential and the commercial.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
So fairness is a big part of this. And we get that. Anybody else? Any questions? So we have a motion before us. I'll accept the motion. Is outlined here on item 2. Someone wants to make it.
I'll move to adopt a minimum residential factor of 0.9792, not to adopt a residential exemption and not to adopt a small commercial exemption.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. It was quick. Thank you all for coming in. Have a good holiday.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 3, confirm future meeting dates. We're due to meet again on Wednesday, December 12th, December 26th, December 27th, January 9th, and January 23rd. And I do believe whether we do this as an extra meeting or include this one of our January meetings, right. The Master Plan Implementation Committee would like to have a joint meeting with us and the Board of Park Commissioners relative to the WARF and I guess I call it the town-owned property there, the property that we own there? It related to the overlay, the proposed overlay district?
Yes.
Do you think, I mean, Katie, you sit there, do you think we could do it in a regular meeting, or do you think we should do that in a special meeting?
I think it'll take more than an hour or so, so maybe
Okay.
a special meeting.
So some point in January, we'll try to do a separate meeting between the three of us. How's that? Okay. Are we okay on all the other dates? No.
Wait, no, I just want to make sure. So we're meeting December 26th, not 27th.
Oh, yeah,
It
it's
says
29.
December 26th.
Either or.
Oh, I'm sorry,
27th.
December 6th, 20, oh, December 27th. I haven't slid completely into this role yet. It's not just went right by that. Do we want to do the 26th or the 27th? Which one, so do we have a preference? So the 26th is the day after Christmas. What's the day after Christmas? It doesn't.
27th would be the Thursday.
I'm going to have a conflict on the 27th. I'm fine with the 26th, but I'll do whatever the majority wants. Do you want to come back to that one? You want to come, we want to wait? I mean, there's so many things coming out in the next few weeks. You want to wait on that one? We'll hold off? Okay, all right. So for now, we'll confirm the 12th, January 9th, and January 23rd with an additional meeting to be set at some point in January between the Mass Plan Implementation Committee and the Board of Park Commissioners. Item 4, citizen speak. We have anyone for citizen speak? Only 99 people. No, we have none tonight, so we'll move right along. Item 5, we have approval of a Wallaston Golf Club liquor license amendment. I believe Mr. Cochran is here representing them. I did see Katie's notes, and I'm fine with those. I don't think, does anyone have any additional, did everyone see the edits too? Yeah, so, did any, go ahead.
I'm recusing myself.
Okay, okay, I forgot that. Does anyone have any other questions or concerns?
No.
No, I don't.
So I have a motion here before us.
So the motion would be to allow the amendment to the license for both the new building and for beverage cart service with the
I'll read it.
conditions outlined relative to beverage cart service.
Yes, with, I'm gonna include with the edits, your edits, okay? So, I'll take a motion if someone, you made the edits, Kitty, you wanna make them all, that way you'll definitely include the edits. They're just small, there's just a couple small.
I've
Oh, you
seen
see
them.
them? So you okay?
They're fine.
Okay, fine with me.
All right, I'll move that we approve the alteration of premises on an all-alcoholic beverages club license at 999 Randolph Avenue. The alteration of the premises is to cover the floor area of a new golf building under construction in 2000, is it under construction or having been constructed?
It's still under construction.
Okay, under construction, and to allow beverage cart service on the golf course.
Seconded.
Any other discussion?
Just, Katie,
Go
do you
ahead,
want to
Priscilla.
add to the motion subject to the conditions? Do you want to add that to the motion?
Yes, yeah, we might as, yeah, I think we should, that's right,
Okay.
subject to the conditions regarding the addition of beverage cart service.
Okay, included it? Get that, Jen? Second, do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion? All good? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved.
Thank you very much.
It was the fastest meeting you've ever been here in your life. Have a good night.
That's true.
Item 6, approval of the 2019 firefighter education credits. We have a motion before us here to approve in the amount of $85,690 for FY19, which reflects a total of 1,672 credits at $51.25 per credit, which is the educational incentive for the firefighters in the Milton Fire Department. Can I have a motion on this one?
I move to approve in the amount of $85,690 for fiscal year 2019 Fire Department Education Incentives, which reflects a total of 1,672 credits at $51.25 per credit.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Item 7. Item 7, discussion approval of 2019 special town meeting, and this would be a discussion whether or not a special town meeting is necessary, what articles have been presented, have been presented, time sensitive, can be pushed back till May, and so, do you want to just discuss this before we go to a motion? Want to just do that, or just have a discussion on it, and then, okay. So, my one that I want to address is on the Fire Station Building Committee, but if someone else wants to go first, I don't think the planning board, would you agree with me, Kit, is going to have any. I'm not sure on the schools. That's the only one, are they going to be ready to come?
I believe it was the school's intention. I didn't see the tape of their warrant committee meeting, that the article they would present would be something that could be ready for February. Not sure if it has to be in a February town meeting.
Okay, so I'll give I'm just gonna try and give the timeline and the argument for the fire, how this comes. So
Can I just ask?
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Is there anything else besides the firefighters that's?
So,
Kidder Library was here.
oh yeah, Kidder
A couple
Library is
weeks
right, yeah.
ago.
So they just wanna bring theirs back, so obviously we would do that.
We have- If I might, Mr. Chairman, we have
Go ahead.
2 housekeeping related articles from the town treasurer's office. And in a brief discussion with Cheryl Tagayas, the planning board has a couple of housekeeping, if you will, bylaw amendments. Nothing no large projects or anything.
So I hear I've thought about trying not to have it, but in going back to June, Michael and I first met with Bob Hiss, because it was clear that the Fire Station Building Committee was moving along, and once it seemed, at that point, we thought there was gonna be schools, we thought there was gonna be some, we thought it was gonna be like at least probably a 2-day. So my suggestion to them was to focus on that one and forget October and be ready, for which they've done. The urgency is that they're now at the point where they're ready. They're ready to come before the capital planning committee first. They're ready to present an article for the architecture and design of the 3 buildings, even though I don't think it would be all paid, and we met at length last night, Amy, Tom Hurley, and I, with their committee. It wouldn't all be paid in 19, it would be spread out. The other caveat in that is that if the donation does happen and the decision is made for a new headquarters, that architecture and design fee, which would be about $600,000 to $700,000, would be carved out of that $2 million. The donation would include all that, so that would come out, so it would reduce it. The key point in this, to keep them moving along, is for them to move requires the approval of what I've referred to in these meetings a lot as the Hurley Amendment, which is Article 37, which is the use of the declining debt from the municipal bonds from the school building committee, which goes back to before 2001, right? In the 1990s, getting right to the 1990s. To do that is going to require an effort, because we are going to have to convince the voters to support this. The reason why they would want to do this is a way for us, this is the largest project. There is no one in any committee now, and I said this to you today, Michael, there is no one on any committee currently, a board in this town, that was involved in the last massive one, which was the school building committee. For all of us, a $25 million project, this will be our first attempt at it. The unique thing about Article 37 is that if we didn't have that, we'd only have 3 ways to pay it. We could take it out of the capital, you wouldn't have that much money in capital overlay, there just wouldn't be that much money. You could go out for a full debt exclusion override, as the schools did, which was multi-millions of dollars. Or you put on, and that's where the only 2 ways to go. You know the other senior person here, Katie, so if I go wrong on this, you can tell me. The difficulty, or the real urgency here, is that to use Article 37, we need to have that vote. So to have that vote, we have to have a project. So to have the project, we have to have the town meeting to approve the project. If we don't have a vote in this April, they're dead in the water for a year, because we don't have any elections in 2019 at all. We wouldn't have another election until 2020. So we would be delayed completely in another year, unless we had like a special election to do it, which, as we know, is a costly thing, and I don't think that's really a good idea. So even if this and the small housekeeping articles are, you're talking, this would probably take a good chunk of one night for what they want to propose to present before town meeting, to move forward on the architectural design, which is about 2.7 million, but.
For all three, right, Richard?
For all three, yeah, for all three. But we wouldn't be paying it all in all three. We just, the other thing about Article 37 is beginning in this year, 2019, there's money we're buying down. So there's 65, 66 this year, almost 80 next year. And if we don't use that, we don't ever get to use that. You lose the ability to use that. So I just think that from the fiscal point of view and the momentum point of view, listening to them and listening to Tom, listening to all the building committee, listening to Amy, that it just makes sense to do our best to try and keep this moving. And if we can do this and just carve out one night in February and do this, I think it's a good thing for us in this project to keep it moving forward. So that's really all I've really taken a lot from Tom on this, because Tom was the one who created this. It is a unique thing for us, because absent this, just like the schools and the library, we'd be looking for a massive debt exclusion override to cover the whole $25 million of this project. Now, hopefully, that between Article 37 and if the donation happens, we could really come out of this as winners in this with a number significantly below the 25, and potentially opening that to, because there's a second caveat to Article 37 in the legislation, as Katie knows because she was here. Moving forward, the DPW is on the radar, and even though the town meeting hasn't voted a building committee yet, at some point that could happen, and I would expect that that could happen. So the question is whether or not we vote to have I know Michael's targeted 2 nights, but I think there's probably one night. We could probably do this in one night in February. The town moderator is aware of this. The Fire Station Building Committee is aware of this. I've told them last night I would argue for this. The one thing I will say, I wanted to hear what Tom's thoughts were on going out another year to 2020, and he did not think that. He felt, and as I did, and he helped confirm that with me, is that 2019 we want to have a project, get this on the voters' plate, tell the story of why we need to do this, and as I've said many times, and Chief Grant echoed it again last night, all you have to do is go and look at any one of our 3 fire stations, and you will be able to understand very quickly why we need to build new facilities in the year 2020, whatever we're at, 2018. It'll be 2020 something by the time the first one opens. So I open it to any of you. Thoughts?
So, do we know if we're going to be voting on an appropriation for fiscal '20? Is that going to be the article?
So
I mean, maybe we don't know.
We don't know. I don't think we do know. And I
Okay.
think the capital committee is going to have to look at
Okay.
how they want to do this. I think the fire station building committee thought it'd be all one thing, but Amy made a very good argument, how we manage and work our debt and our bonds to, you're not going to need it all right away, so how to spread it out. And then clearly, if the donation happens, that reduces it by a third.
But it's going to be a motion for an appropriation?
Yes,
Okay.
there'll be a motion for appropriation,
Okay.
yes.
Richard, can I just report on your meeting with the Master Plan?
Yeah,
Implementation
and
Committee
I'll leave
last
that to you,
night?
yeah, I didn't do that, so you can do that too.
So last night, Richard came into the Master Plan Implementation Committee to report on, and talk with the committee about the town center and the fire headquarters plans for the town center. There were some of the neighbors were there, the president of the newly formed neighborhood association, I think it's called the Town Center Neighborhood
Center,
Association, was there, as well as a few others. And we had a little bit of a discussion about what's in the master plan in terms of the town center. Ideas like possible civic center, or can you use one of the old chemical building or an old fire station if the current fire station is not used for fire station, could it be used for another purpose like a teen center or office space for town hall? There's also things in there like a pop-up plaza. So there's a lot of different ideas, including even things like better coordination of parking or services with the churches. And all of that as everyone knows, grew out of public input, but hasn't really been vetted by any board or committee to determine whether it's even feasible. And the planning staff hasn't looked at it yet. So what Richard reported to the Master Plan Implementation Committee was that a town meeting in February is necessary for the reason he just stated, because of the referendum question in April. And our discussion kind of turned toward, really led by the chair, Cheryl Tagayas, who is an architect, that we should probably have a site analysis done of the area, which I think is along the lines of what we had talked about when this came up a few weeks ago, that there may be other things we should be thinking about in conjunction with the fire station. So the committee did not take a vote, but it was the general consensus that we would like to, and we asked Lauren Massier, the assistant town planner, to contact MAPC and see what the cost might be, find out whether it could be tacked on to the work they're doing currently under the existing contract, and to report back to us at the next meeting. But the general consensus of the committee was, if there's going to be an article for architectural work for the fire headquarters, then we'd like to submit an article that would, I guess, fund a site analysis done
Which I
by
think is
whoever
a
the
good
appropriate
idea.
person might be, maybe MAPC, maybe somebody else. So, and really to have them go in tandem with each other. We didn't really, our discussion wasn't so much about timing, it was just it should be at the same time as the fire building committee article may go forward for their architectural design. So that would be potentially another article. So that's the update on where we were at as a committee last night. If I can then just, Richard, just kind of talk more generally about the special town meeting. I mean, my initial thinking was that it would make sense to have a special meeting in February for something like the Falcone project. Now that we have an
Well, I
annual
forgot that
special
was-
meeting
That was in there too, yeah,
in
you're right.
October, you kind of only want to have a special meeting in the winter if it's really urgent or if there's something critical. Late February gets you into the warrant committee's busiest season, as many of us know, so it does present an extra burden upon them while they're in the middle of their budget review if suddenly they have to get ready for a special town meeting and be there at town meeting, whether it's 1 or 2 nights. It's just taking time out of their schedule for the budget. So those were some of my concerns, but just today and thinking a little bit more about what we talked about last night, I guess the question, and I talked to the town administrator, but apparently town council's on trial, so he wasn't available to answer any questions today. Is there really a connection between the referendum and the special town meeting? Can you still put the referendum question forward and defer an article from February until May? And is there some other way to approve the project? I mean, can an action by this board, or is the fact that the town meeting has already appointed a building committee, is that enough so that the referendum question could go forward without having to go to the cost and the expense of doing a February meeting 2 months before the annual May meeting? So that's just a question that I think it might be worth getting some additional clarity as to whether you really do need, and because the special town meeting article would only be for architectural study, it wouldn't be for the actual building. So could you still put the question to the voters and without a February town meeting? That's a question that I think we ought to maybe look into before we make a final decision.
I think legally, I thought about this, I actually might have even said this last night. I think legally, you probably could. But as you know, in whenever you're going to in a quote Webb last night, he said it, Webb Collins said it, whenever you are going, because in essence, even though the Hurley Amendment gives us a road to take to do this, it's essentially an override. So you have to convince the voters. And so it's critical to us how you tell the story to get approval to pass it. Because if we do put it on, and it's the only reason to, and I don't remember who said this, the part about, because I've listened to so many, the part about getting it before the town meeting is a way of starting to tell the story, building the momentum towards an April town, an April referendum vote. Katie, having worked on these in the past, you can't just sit back and say, okay, here's the day we're gonna do it, it's gonna happen, it won't. I just wanna,
Right.
I'm willing, and even if, does it have to be February, could we go, I know we had originally, I think, pushed it out to February for, was it the schools or for Falcone? We were originally thinking January, because when we first went with Bob, we talked about January, I can't remember what made it get out into
Yeah,
February.
I think the planning board was looking for a later date.
It might have been.
And then they were almost concerned with too late, the week after February vacation, some people use as a good travel time. Its prices are a little lower to travel.
Is January still, if we were to do this, is January still out of the question, or we don't? Would you be more comfortable if we did it in January versus February? Or that doesn't,
Well, and part of my concern too is just bringing town meeting members out on a night if we're
Right, I
not
get that,
sure it's
right.
really an urgent situation.
Right.
And given the fact that the Fire Building Committee has really yet to go to the Capital Committee, and look, on the substance of this, I'm going to be recused, but in terms of scheduling a town meeting, I don't think it's a recusal issue. Have they really done all of their,
oh, they're ready to come
have they
now.
gone through all the but have they gone through all the steps they need to really get a properly worded and a town meeting article before town meeting? Because if it's a bonding for, I mean, the question would be, when is the next date the town's going out to bond? I don't know, but someone, must have an answer to that. What's the regular schedule? And what's the difference between February and May if you're really looking at an FY20 appropriation?
So
So
the
the-
bonding will probably be August of 2020, because we just went out in August of this year. Capital Improvement Committee will meet for the first time next Wednesday morning.
So the danger is, so then the question is, because I think the one definite to me here is that we need to schedule a vote in this April of this year, that no one's told me. I haven't heard anyone, whether it's been Amy, Tom, fire station, and no one has said to me, wait another year. So are we taking a risk by coming up with I mean, maybe we can, Katie, you might be right. I mean, if there's a way we can do it without having to have a special town meeting, I'm all in. If, I don't know how we do it though without a town meeting, but I think John probably would be. Do you think we could have an answer from I don't think we have to decide tonight, but I definitely want to do it by our next meeting, so do you think if we could consult with John by this beforehand?
So I put it on John's radar today on a voicemail. He's in trial until Friday, probably through Friday, but it's on his list of stuff to take a look at.
So given that, can we all agree that we do have to put the referendum on for April of 2019?
I'm going to recuse myself on that.
Oh, yeah, I
so
get that,
I'll-
okay. No, I don't want to vote, I don't
But
want to vote, I
you
don't want to
have to
vote,
take that. Okay.
just, I don't want to take any votes tonight, just that, I want to stay on track with that, and then how we figure out if we can do this without a special town meeting, and something we can come back in the May town meeting, I'm fine. I just, I do know that from the capital committee, they asked to come, our first meeting is next week, they wanted to, but Amy said, it's, so I think it's gonna be the second meeting they're going to be allowed to come forward, but, I give them credit, they're working very hard. This is a lot of work, and, they're meeting weekly, they're doing a lot of work on this, so, I just don't wanna see them, when it gets to our point, to see us trip and fail. I just want us to have our ducks in a row and do whatever we can, so. We don't have to vote at all, but let's hear from John, and then we'll make a decision at the next meeting. Is that okay?
Sounds fine with me.
Okay.
Could we also just ask John a second question? which
Sure,
would be-
I'm whatever.
Because if we have to have one, I think we'd probably all want to keep it to one night.
I
given-
agree.
Given the time of year, and especially the burden on the warrant committee.
agree.
So could we ask John, if suddenly we decide we're going to have one and we get an influx of articles that really are not critical, can we just,
Put those off till
usually
May.
we put in everything that an independent board, like the library trustees or anyone else, has submitted to us, but, I mean, do we have the authority to just say, we're having a special town meeting and it's only for these 1 or 2 or 3 articles, and we're not going to take, the treasurer's articles on rescinding bond authorizations, that could easily go to May. So do we have the authority to reject some articles? And I don't know the answer. I suspect we do, but I don't know the answer to that question. It just hasn't come up in recent memory that I'm aware of.
You'll ask him that?
I'll follow through on that.
Great.
I agree.
Yep.
If we can keep it to one night, I'm more than happy. Go ahead, Michael.
So
Okay,
it sounds like the possible list is fire station, Kidder, a couple for treasurer, a couple for planning board, maybe MIPC, land use analysis, and maybe the schools.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's the universe.
That's the most it could be.
Okay.
yeah. The Yulin Rink
Can be put-
town meeting article is not ready.
Okay. And then I just have one question on the, because I wasn't there last night at MPIC. When you talked about a site analysis, were you talking about the whole area, like a land use planning analysis of the whole
Yes.
center? Perfect, yeah.
There you go. There's some of them are easy.
Yep.
Some of them, like I put stars, the shared parking, like one of the things I talked about was you know, when they built the churches on either side, you know, no one knew they were gonna have preschool, you know, that changed there. Access and, you know, the safest way to access in and out, just from the fire station perspective, how it go. So I didn't know what to call it. I had talked with Cheryl a couple times, and that's why I asked, I'm like, can I come before them? And a site planning analysis is definitely what we want to do. So,
Great.
and the other thing, just the last thing I'll say relative to that, and I said this, Katie heard me say this last night, is that if in fact we wind up building a new fire station right next to the old fire station, and I know there's all kinds of talk, but one of the things that we need to look at, and Michael knows this, and I think just as soon as I said it last night, we're in this building here because we don't have room in our own building, is that this may be a chance for us to expand the footprint, actually build an annex. You'll take, because the old fire station would be available, to create an annex of town, just for our meeting room, and just to have those as part of, and I think we're gonna have to start to think about that as well. Because it does seem, in listening to Mr. Collins, that the likelihood of this donation is even though it's not, I wouldn't say it's definite, but it's very, very strong at this point. He's very, and he has met with town council, and John Flynn's been very impressed with everything that's been presented to him so far. They've dotted every I and crossed every T. And the last thing I will say too, because I learned a good thing last night. A lot of people have asked questions about why it's an anonymous donation. And while I understand legally anonymous donations are legal, one of the things that they're hoping is that it may incite someone else to want to donate. And I get that. So I thought that was a pretty good idea. So, okay, so we'll hold off, and we're not gonna do anything, and we'll just move it to the next meeting until we hear from John. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8, approval of the May 2019 annual town meeting warrant date closing. Per the attached timeline, the warrant for the May 2019 annual town meeting will need to close on Thursday, January 3rd. That's unbelievable. So we have a motion there before us to approve that date, Thursday, January 3rd, 2019, at 5 o'clock is the closing date. Oh, I have the whole layout here. Is the
Yeah,
whole-
no.
Oh, you've got
Yeah.
that, okay.
I noticed though that our meeting is January 9th rather than the 3rd.
Does it have to, you want to
So-
move it to the night? Do you want to move it to our meeting? I
Well,
can't.
do we want January 3rd to be the deadline for anyone else to submit an article? But we may have articles that we're working on that we'd want to include our article on the 9th if we,
I agree with Katie.
if we,
I agree.
if we're still, or if something comes up that late that we want to add. So,
So how do you want to say? Do you want to say selectmen close for outside
I
articles?
guess it makes, so long as we have the right to then add any articles on the 9th, I guess it's fine the way it's worded.
Okay,
I just jumped into my head. Sorry.
that's okay. No, okay, anybody else? So I have a motion before us. Can I have a motion to approve this date?
I'll move that we approve Thursday, January 3rd, 2019, at 5 o'clock PM as the closing date for articles for the May 2019 annual town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 9, this is discussion approval of the DPW. I do not think the DPW director is joining us tonight. You
The
can allude to-
DPW director will not be joining us tonight, so I will take this from here. As a member of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, I'd like to thank the group, again, Jay Fundling, Tom Hurley, Jerry Burke, myself, and Chase Berkeley. We met several times. One of the first meetings, we talked about a credit system and the adoption of some. We looked at some of the other communities that have done it, communities that preceded Milton in adopting a stormwater fee. We had a lengthy discussion in one of our September meetings about that. We tabled that and focused most recently on the rates. This is a good story. The rates are flat for the year. If you see the slide, the second slide in front of you, just basically gives you a breakdown of all the work that was done last year to recategorize that fourth tier. In the first year of stormwater, FY17, there was some inequity in that third tier where people jumped from 4,225 square feet to 4,226 square feet, and their bill tripled from $56 to $156. So this same Stormwater Committee, this time last year, adjusted that, and what you see on the preceding slide is the sliding scale that was agreed to last year. Town meeting approved a very similar dollar amount, $800,480 this year. I want to thank Alan Bishop from DPW GIS for recalculating the impervious square footage in town, which is a dynamic number each year with new parcels coming online, work taking place on some existing parcels. And this is the rate sheet going forward for fiscal year 19.
Bless you.
A lot of the complaints or suggestions that we received this year was regarding the bills themselves and how they read. A lot of them, all of them, did not have impervious square footage on there. In other words, I know what category I'm in, but I don't know what my impervious square footage is. So that will be included in this year's bill. And then the committee will work next year towards possibly embedding the stormwater bill into one of your water and sewer quarterly bills. So again, 188 was the rate last year per 100 square feet, and each of the tiered flat fees that was decided 2 years ago in the tier system and moved forward last year in separating that fourth tier will also be the fee asked to be collected in fiscal year 19.
Any discussion?
Mike, if I could just ask what we think a time frame on the credit review might be? Because I know there's a lot of interest in that.
Yeah, I would say we will have a credit system in place by this time next year. There's 4 or 5 different models we looked at. Newton has a pretty robust one. Most of them only get you back to half of what your fee would have been. So for some of the larger properties that aren't single-family residences, and I should back up by saying, of the single-family residences, if you could just go to the next slide, Jennifer, about a little over $500,000 of the $800,000 comes from single family residential units. The rest comes from multifamilies, commercials, not-for-profits, et cetera. But the idea is to basically give a 50%. A lot of the cities and towns that have come up with a credit system only give you the ability to cover half of what your cost would have been with a credit system. But that's something that the next goal of this Stormwater Advisory Group is to tackle that credit system.
Any chance we might have an idea about where it's heading by town meeting?
I don't think we plan on meeting prior to town meeting, but we could probably get a group assembled. I know Chase Berkeley had reached out to the Newton DPW director, who was a co-worker of mine in Boston, to pick his brain as to how Newton implemented it and what some of the pros and cons were. That could be the nexus for another meeting for us sooner rather than later, so.
Yeah, it would be
might
nice
be
to get a
some-
report on where it is by
Yeah.
town meeting, because, there is a lot of interest in
Right.
that.
At town meeting.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough, yeah. Obviously, the burden of proof would lie on the person with the bill to prove that they've taken steps to remediate stormwater on their property. It's a very arduous task for Public Works to do that on a case-by-case basis. But if brought to our attention, Public Works' attention, then it would be addressed accordingly. But, yeah, so the burden is kind of on the fee payer to present their argument to the town.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it would be nice to be able to give some direction about where we're headed with that.
Yeah.
At town meeting, if we could.
Thank you. Will do.
So can I have a motion to approve the 2019 stormwater utility rates as recommended by the Stormwater Fee Advisory Committee?
I'll move to approve the FY 2019 stormwater utility fee rates recommended by the Stormwater Fee Advisory Committee as follows. Tier 1, $32, Tier 2, $44, Tier 3, $61, Tier 4A, $110, Tier 4.2, is that right? No, actually, it's written, it's a typo here, so it's Tier 4.1,
Right.
$110, Tier 4.2, $205, and Tier 4.3, $468.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, item 10 is the approval of the Master Plan Implementation Committee 2020 budget request. And I think we're going to ask Bill Clark to join us, Katie, right? Just after last night's meeting, I'm already approving it right now.
Well, we should probably note, after last night's meeting, this number could change slightly depending on what we hear back from MAPC
Yeah.
and the other, whoever else Lauren may be consulting with.
This is the narrative that I have for the, yep. Yes, there's one coming around. When I was here last time, we talked about the traffic studies. And
Oh, you already got it.
we had $150,000. I know that there was discussion that how to break the $150,000 down. We saw that it would cost a little bit less. The board still felt that they intend to allocate $140,000 for a townwide traffic model. The traffic model will allow the town to test the impacts of alternative transportation improvements and impacts of what-if land use. The second part to that would be the Master Plan Implementation Committee intends to allocate $10,000 to a town-wide bicycle and pedestrian master plan. Bicycle and pedestrian master plans establish a framework to increase walking and biking trails, improve connectivity of non-auto paths and trails in a particular locality. The plans typically include policies and planning methods to encourage alternative modes of travel, land use plans, bicycle and transportation infrastructure development, and address traffic and safety concerns. All this fits in with what we've been doing with the complete streets at the same time. Same time that bike and pedestrian goes back into the townwide traffic model. Anytime we use federal money, we have to provide for bicycle and pedestrian ways in that same plan.
Sorry,
You
I'm
have a
doing
question.
three.
What's
I'm
your
doing
question?
three. No, I'm doing three things at once. So my only question is, I listened to all this last night, so I just don't think people realize how critical work you're doing there is, especially with regard to moving people, bikes and cars. And
I think you saw last night some of the, get down into the meat of it, what's happening in and around Milton Village.
Right.
I think you looked at the amount of parking spaces, the amount of cars that travel through that area. How do we move more cars? How do we account for more cars? How do we account for more transportation options down in just that little piece of that corridor? We talk about putting lights in. We have to coordinate those lights when we put them in. You do it in one place, it has an effect on someplace else in town. We were told by the state in 1946, you need to put a light on Canton, Randolph, and Adams. We knew better, we said no. 1999, we had a traffic study done for that particular area. It came back and said, you really need to put a light at Canton, Randolph, and Adams. We came back and said no. 2003, when we did a PWED grant and we had just finished or just about to finish 88 Wharf, we looked again at putting a light in there, and the people in that area said no. Well, we changed the configuration of the roadway, but we never added in the light. And we went back, we had a study done on it, and again, that study came back and said, you need to have a light. We just haven't done it yet. And having a traffic model, actually you can now show people what happens if you put that light in. Don't put it in, we know what happens, but you can actually show it in the synchro movement of those cars. This is trying to do this town-wide to get a better picture of, if I don't do it here, what's my effect? I mean, you have people say, if you do something down on Canton, Randolph, and Adams, the side streets coming up all have do not enter. How many times do we go to Traffic Commission and they say, I want one on my street too? Then the next month or the next time we have a meeting, the next street over comes in and goes, hey, I want one too, because all the cars that can't go there, they're coming to us. This is just a case of, we're trying to get on top of it. We're trying to understand how to best approach the situation.
So, to your point on your newly formed committee, you definitely want to go, did Beta say they were going to put that online, right, on the town's website? The report from last night?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yes.
definitely want to read that. They did a very good job.
This is an
It was a good
updated?
job.
This is
Yeah,
an
they did it
updated-
last night,
It
yeah.
was just
brand new.
given last night.
Just
We'll
gave it
have
last
that
night.
to put
Very
onto
good.
our website
Yeah. I mean,
this week.
I mean, the idea from the purposes of our committee, we're gonna meet tomorrow morning, I think is going to be diagnose the problem and identify possible solutions. And then figure out how to implement those solutions. And to the extent that we have a computer model, it helps with all three of those. Right?
Is the tool,
So-
right.
Right, that's exactly right. So, and I know that, you know, we've been, Cheryl, the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and they're gonna be there tomorrow morning, and they're gonna be, so we're gonna be, as far as I know, and as far as I understand, we're gonna be working together with this and using that model together. You guys will use it for certain things, but, you know, we kind of have the broader view of how do we find the problems and fix them. You know?
Right, and that's why we are looking townwide. We're not
Right.
trying to be site-specific. We
Right.
did site-specific with Milton Village so we could see what it would look like.
Right.
What we came in and said, you know, we want to look at new zoning. Well, when you do the new zoning, what's the ripple effect? Well, one of those ripples is traffic.
So we have a proposed motion here. Do you comfortable moving on the motion now as it is?
Yes,
good?
well, I think we should know, just because of what we talked about earlier, it's possible that the committee may want to amend its budget request once we get that MAPC quote.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple questions, Bill. It's pretty straightforward and it's pretty clear, but the budget for 2019 for the MPIC was 50,000, is that correct?
Yes.
And now the MPIC is asking us to approve a motion to quadruple their budget.
Yes.
I see. But Katie, to your point, you said that that figure may change.
Upwards.
Upwards, yeah, oh yeah, not down, upwards, upwards.
I have to say, and please don't equate this to me being unsympathetic to the traffic challenges in the town of Milton, but that's a lot of money.
It is.
Particularly given the fact that you're quadrupling your budget from fiscal year 2019.
Tony, I could add to that.
Yeah.
The 100, so 50 is what we've had the last couple of years. The idea is that the Master Plan Implementation Committee is going to have a 10-year life. So its budget is going to really vary. There could be some years we're asking for $500,000. There could be some years we're asking for 40,000. It depends on what the committee's working on at a given time, what its priorities are expected to be for the next year, and what the cost may be for different projects. But the 150 it's really a one-time expense. We're not going to be asking for that year after year. So that would be a perfect use for free cash, rather than the regular operating budget. So the committee's budget is intended to be fluctuating like this and to vary, could be by significant margins, just depending on what the projects are.
Sure.
As with any database, it costs a lot to put the database together. Once you've got the database, yes, there is a cost, but it is nowhere near what it costs to put it together the first time. That's what this is. Every project that comes before the planning board, everyone that, a lot of the major projects that wind up going to the ZBA, projects that come to you, everybody's looking back and going, traffic. We look at East Milton, what did we say? Oh, traffic. We're looking at Falcone, traffic. Everybody
going
has a
traffic.
traffic study. You do certain site plans, you're looking at, well, wait a second, where's the traffic, where's the parking? That's what a lot of this is. If you look at the bottom of the page, there's some of the things that the master plan implementation has spent money on. At the same time, the planning board had money in its budget, the master plan had money in, the master plan implementation committee had money in their budget, and it still wasn't enough to hit some of the major issues going on in the village and in East Milton.
So having, I've said this before, having chaired the traffic commission for 10 years, I applaud this because we really need this. We're using Band-Aids when we really need a skilled surgeon, yeah.
I'm trying to control it and keep it in here, and it keeps finding a new way out.
Yeah, we need.
Or more come in and I can't take and squeeze
Yeah,
it in.
you
I mean,
just-
we look at, when we were looking at the traffic for the 40B on Randolph Ave, they did a gap study. Where's the gap? In
Right.
the gap study, between 7 and 9, in order to come out of that development, you need a 7-second window to get your car out. So we asked for a gap study, it came back. The answer to it is 0. There is no gap between 7 and 9 on Randolph Ave. We'll turn that around and come the other way, 3 to 5 in the afternoon. There is no gap. And that same thing is happening 28, 138, Unquity Road. It's everywhere. We're a cut through, everybody's looking to use us to get to someplace else.
It's a fair comment, Tony, that it's quadrupling. I mean, normally you wouldn't want to see that. You wouldn't want to see it with a departmental budget, and there's no salary costs or anything here, but this is, unlike the departments, this is really kind of a unique animal where it's basically funding particular projects that are going on at any given time, rather than
And I get that, and I understand it.
operations.
I guess the question that I have is related more to, you mentioned a quote or a figure from the MAPC. So, and Bill, you use the term database, and there's language in here, townwide traffic model. So this is a software program, a computer software program with a database that will allow us to do this study? And it's like a
Yes.
one-time sort of upfront capital investment, if you will?
Yes.
But do we have an idea of what where the MAPC is gonna come back with on that figure? So we've started at 140, but Richard, you said it could only go up?
the overall budget, not the 150 for the traffic piece, just the piece about the town civic center, so that it's possible it could
that's
get
separate
included
from
in the
this.
50, or it could be an amount over the 50 plus the 150.
Okay.
The 200 includes your transportation and your planning studies. It's two separate items.
I understand that. I'm just a little, how do I put this? I'm not unclear, but I'm looking for a little bit more information on the database or the traffic model or the software program.
Go ahead.
So I have two thoughts. One, it's fair to say that this 150 is based on the estimate from Beta.
Yes.
And they provide, Beta is the vendor that provided a kind of a work order, estimated work order, on which some of the language is from that work order. So it would be helpful, I think, for Tony to see that
Yeah,
work order
it would.
or the estimate from
You
Beta.
had copies of that at the last meeting that I was here. There was a letter that Beta's logo's on the top of the page.
Yeah, so
I'll
that's.
send it back
that's-
out to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that gives you a little bit more of the background for what the 150 is
We-
based on.
Yeah, essentially what it comes down
Yeah.
to is I'd feel more comfortable knowing what it was we were purchasing. That's all.
Sure.
And-
We had, when we did the master plan itself, one of the components of the master plan is transportation. The person that we had was Jeff Maxtitutis. Jeff happened to be working for a different company. Beta does a lot of work with our DPW and engineering. I happen to have asked Jeff for what would be included, what would a scope look like for a townwide traffic model? What kind of cost am I looking at? So he came back, he gave us a scope that he felt he could live with. We had a discussion after I was here last time, and he had come back and he had tweaked it again, and he really wants the job. It gave a little more detail, but it may go to the issue that you're looking for. And I will send you what he gave me last time.
Yeah, we did have it, we've had it, it did come to us before from Beta, we've had it.
Yep.
I mean, to me, this has been like on the radar since before you were even on the board, because we knew the only way to really tackle this was to take a step like this, and it was gonna cost some money to do it.
We had, Howard Stein Hudson had done a similar type presentation for the deck 4 years ago, when Alex Sue was here. And she had taken and shown us what happens with the different lights in the square. But that was only for that particular piece of that project.
Right.
This being more, I will give you the latest and greatest from Beta. And we won't necessarily be choosing Beta, we have to put it out to bid.
Right.
So, a few of the things may change, that somebody else may come in with something else. Their price might be better, but it's not gonna, it won't vary greatly.
So I'm very much in favor of the thrust of this, particularly for the new Traffic Mitigation Committee. However, in terms of procedure, my only question is, since this is an FY 2020 appropriation, is this something that should be vetted first by the warrant committee? And
We gotta,
is this-
we're sending it to them. It goes us, then them.
So we're gonna vote it now?
We're gonna vote it and
We're
send
gonna
it to
vote it
them,
now
yeah.
and to
Your
send it to
support.
them
Yeah.
to vote,
Yes.
Yeah.
to vet it? Okay.
Yeah, us first,
Yeah.
procedurally, yeah.
That's the,
Got it.
And if I might add, when I read the Beta sheet, it sounded to me like a one-time capital expenditure that could be
Yeah.
a prime candidate for free cash. It's a townwide study that would be useful going forward. As Bill said, it's dynamic and robust, and, you know, if you put X amount of cars into this circulation, what does it do, and where do they turn out? And it's something that could be a prime candidate for free cash.
Okay. Good? You good now? You all right with it? I mean, I'm just going,
No, I appreciate the courtesy.
what part can I help you answer?
I want to know what our money is purchasing. I want a better idea. I feel this is a significant amount of money. I understand Katie's point that this is not something that will be reoccurring with each, budget, that this is, these things fluctuate, they're elastic. But to me, I see 50 in fiscal year 19. I see a quadrupling. I understand, I get it, but the terms right now, as they are presented, to me are still too vague. for
This
me.
is still your first bite at an apple that is very large. This is something now that gets sent to the warrant committee.
I
The warrant
understand.
committee's still going to look at it. They're going to take in, ask the same questions that you're asking. I'm going to have to go back and make the same, I'm going to have to give better answers to them, so I'll use what you're saying. You'll also get to participate in those same conversations with them, or you have that opportunity. And then we get to go to town meeting and have the same discussion again.
I understand.
So it's not, you're not voting it, we've got it, we're gonna order it tomorrow.
I understand. I get it.
So-
I understand.
It's also going to be part of the town administrator's budget review, and
Right.
with the town administrator putting a budget proposal together for the warrant committee. So it's going to get that extra layer of review too, maybe even the capital committee.
okay, so I have it as a motion to approve it, to move it forward.
And the planning board has already voted.
Right, planning board's already moved it, and so,
So I'll move that we approve the Master Plan Implementation Committee's FY 2020 budget request in the amount of $200,000.
Second.
okay. Anything else? Any other discussion? We're good? Melinda, good? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed.
Opposed, okay, opposed. Mr. Farrington is opposed. Okay, motion carries. All right, thank you. Don't go away, and we'll,
See you in a few.
okay. I'm gonna jump from item 11 to item 12. I see that our town moderator is here, Mr. Hiss, if you want to come and join us. Who's going to discuss the status of the Legislative Affairs Committee and electronic voting at town meeting. Good evening. Welcome.
Evening, thanks. Don't mean to
How are you?
disrupt, but I appreciate the
No,
courtesy.
no.
I was watching you on TV as I was getting ready. I just wanted to thank you for the thoughts you're giving to the warrant committee as you're, as they're going through, working on all your behalf, our behalf, the town's behalf. You've all been, many of you have been on it. It's a hard job, so thanks for considering that. I appreciate it. So my two topics tonight are, let's call it a bit of unfinished business. When I first transitioned to this role from Brian Walsh, he said, something he'd been meaning to do for a while is address legislative affairs. He had not filled the committee for a number of years. I have not since then. So something I've been meaning to bring to you was a discussion I had with Town Council John Flynn. He said, Bob, the service that this provides is really provided by his firm as part of the basic service to the town, which is, it's a committee of 5 people, typically attorneys, who are appointed by the moderator to assess the impact of legislation that comes from the state. So it's a service provided to you and other departments. He said, John said, we already do that. So I said, okay, if we've got something that he's already providing for you and other departments, should we clean this up and perhaps just disband the committee? So, again, it's been vacant for a number of years. There's not much more to it. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that was his observation and my recommendation to you.
I don't ever remember hearing, go ahead, Katie,
I have a question. Is it a bylaw committee? So in order to disband it, are we talking a bylaw amendment, or is it not a bylaw committee?
Good question. I don't know how far back it goes.
Do you know when the last time it was filled? Or who may have been one of the last people who served on it?
I think it was last filled like 2011. The last name I saw was Ted Daber was last man standing on the committee. So it's been a while.
Do you ever remember them at town meeting? I don't remember. Do you remember hearing from them?
Not giving a report, I don't remember.
No, it shows up as Article 2 every year, and it gets voted in and never gets filled, because the service is already provided.
So to your question, if it's not a bylaw, we could do this now. If it is a bylaw, it's going to require town meeting to do it?
Well,
We don't know.
I think it's, either way, it's probably appropriate to get a vote by town meeting, because it's been there for years now. So if it's just, if it was created by a prior town meeting, it could be disbanded like you just did the library committee. With Lang's discharge the legislative affairs committee. If it's a bylaw, then it would need the typical 2/3 vote to change the bylaw.
So I'm happy to move either way once we know.
Okay. Then,
do you want us to take a vote tonight anyway on it?
No, why don't I just get the full details for it and dig in and come back and tell you about it, so.
Also, the MMA is also another resource that often updates the town on what legislation is pending and what's going on, so that in addition to town council, that's another good resource that we have.
Yeah. Okay. So the second topic is electronic voting. So a little bit of background. There's about 20 towns now across the Commonwealth, both representative town meetings and open town meetings, that have bought in different ways a system to start recording votes electronically. Brookline and Reading, for example. So I've met with a number of the moderators. There's about 6 or so representative town meetings that have already bought it. The benefits of why they're doing it are, first, you can quickly establish a quorum. So for example, today, Galvin doesn't just look at who logs in. She's got a clicker there, and she's counting noses in the seats, right?
We saw in the final hour of town meeting of our last.
That's going to be one of the other
meeting,
benefits, right? You can obviously quickly capture the votes. So in 35 seconds, you could dispose of a standing vote or of a roll call vote. We'll get to whether we want to do it on every vote. And the quorum call is no longer needed because she knows how many people are physically there in the room, and I'll get how they do that. So that would have resolved our quorum issue just in seconds. So how does it work? The technology is when a member checks in, they no longer have to sign in. They would be issued a device that's assigned to them uniquely for the duration of the night. It runs on a private network that would operate within the high school. So as soon as 145 people get a device, Sue will know, because she'd be able to check up on a monitor, we have quorum. So then the meeting could start. Then there's 2 options for recording votes. Some towns record every single vote because they want a track record of how every representative town meeting member voted. But that would take 35 seconds per vote, and you've seen some of our voice votes happen in 5 or 10. So some towns do it on every vote, some towns don't. If those don't do it on every vote, they save it for the standing votes. We had 10 people stand up, or the roll calls, which we fortunately haven't had in a long time. So we dispose of it quickly. The other thing it does is it gives you instant results about the vote for every single member on every article that night. So the next day we could put up on the website, not only here's how every article voted, but here's what the vote count was. Today, Sue has to tabulate that manually. It's pretty laborious. She basically pushes it off until she has time, which is when the annual report comes. So we'd get a lot of data much more quickly. And voters would have more informed information about how their town meeting members are representing them, because you'd know, which is one of the benefits the representative town meeting members' meetings follow or get when they follow this.
How much?
Two business models. Think about 25K over 5 years.
Okay.
So Brookline bought a system. It was about 20 to 25 grand 5 years ago. So the downside is you buy it once. Technology gets old, so it'll have a life to it. You then have to have your town IT department run it at town meeting. The second option is a subscription model. They average about 5 grand a year, but it's based on the number of devices and the number of town meetings. So if you have 3 town meetings, lots of people, the cost goes up. You have 1 meeting, the cost goes down. So think about 5 grand a year is what a town like Reading is spending on it over 5 years. So either way, you're in that kind of ballpark for money. So not insignificant, but not 5 grand a year is not going to break the bank, but it's something to consider. So here's the process I'm recommending. What a lot of towns have done is they've created a committee, typically 5 folks. The town clerk, who I've spoken to, because obviously she's one of the players in this game. Second, IT, so I've spoken to Rob Mallett. He's interested in serving because he might either help evaluate the technology or be one of the people implementing the technology if either way it gets adopted. And then 3 town meeting members who would be the folks that would be living with it and really, I think, best judging whether to do it. So that's a thought.
You want to do it by April? If you do it?
Well, the problem is it would need an authorization by
May,
January.
right, yeah.
So we'd have to have the money, because the budget closes in January, right? So I don't know if we can make it, unless you want to set money aside for it. If they could get it done that quickly, there's a finite number of vendors, only about 3 out there. There's lots of
Well,
evidence, you're gonna pick one.
Depending on which way you went too, if you went for the 5 grand versus if you went for the 5-year 5, you could potentially go as an RFT. It's only 5,000 versus the whole 25,000. I don't know, what do you, just a thought, I mean,
So
if,
our chief procurement officer used to work in Brookline. I'm sure she's familiar with town clerk.
Okay.
And I'll do some back checking on that information and
Good,
be interesting.
yep. They're looking at rebuying now because it's now hit that end of useful life in Brookline. So, but they're gonna go with the same approach, that's what they tell me.
So they've had it 4 or 5 years already?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. Reading's had it about less than that, maybe 2 to 3 years. And there's probably 4 or 5 towns that are forming committees like this now, because people are looking at the benefits of, automation and technology, just like we talked about.
And these discussions that you've had with your fellow moderators in these other towns and these other communities, has anyone mentioned any drawbacks to it?
Yes, some people don't want to spend the money.
Okay. Well, aside from that, that's certainly the big one, but aside from the financials,
There are some people that don't want their votes really recorded.
I get
They
that.
like kind of being anonymous. So actually, in the open town meeting, what they do is they have anonymous votes, because you don't want they don't want the citizens called out. In the representative, those moderators say, no, the meeting members should be held accountable, and they should be recorded in public.
I tend to
But
agree.
that'll be up to town meeting to say, well, we may want to keep it the way it is.
One of the things it would do for you, just think, and
No,
it's just only because you know how at town meeting members like to sit in the back, they just, and then a lot of times when you get to a stand, you have to call them all forward. This would eliminate that, right? If they
That's
have
right.
wherever they sit, they can vote.
Yes,
So they could use the whole auditorium, which
Right.
is,
assigning the
Okay.
tellers, counting the vote, double counting, Sue and I comparing notes. It takes 7 to 10 minutes to get one of those things done. That's 35 seconds now.
So 2 questions, Bob. One, is the 5,000 for Reading, is that based on 1 town meeting a year? Or is it 5,000 per town meeting, or is it,
It's per town meeting, the math would be per town meeting and the number of devices.
in the number of days? So the
Right.
estimate is 5,000 per town meeting. So for us, it might be 10K a year.
Yeah, and they'll have a special, which I think is 1,500 for a one-night special,
I see.
pardon the pun there. but,
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
keep going, Michael.
So, yeah, it's a per transaction model. So
Right.
think of us basically meeting devices per night.
Yep,
So far this year, we have had 4 nights.
yep. So, and then the second question is, do you want the Board of Selectmen to charge a committee, to commission a committee comprised of the clerk and the, do you want it to be a Board of Selectmen committee? Because if that's the case, we could, get a charge and get it voted on next time if we want to move on this.
I'm willing to do it, just because it's a moderator thing, and it's
Okay.
kind
I'm
of
okay
the
with
moderator's
that.
domain. I'm kind of briefing you that, but it's your money, so if you say, no, that's ridiculous, I don't want to spend that kind of money, then we'll put a stop to it. But I think there's some worth researching anyways.
I'd say you should research it and then come back to us and let us,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you decide how you think is the best way. You're the market, you understand how many town meetings, would there ever be like a special where you wouldn't need them at all? Like, maybe it's just one item, not one item. Were you watching TV tonight? Just one article. If there were ever times when you wouldn't use them? If you're paying, if it's like an à la carte, you're paying them as your,
conceivably, if we got to the point where, let's say we could construct a consent agenda with
Right.
a lot of non-controversial things, and maybe there was another night with the controversial things. Maybe in the subscription model, it's on for one night and not for another. I think from a practical standpoint, it's hard to predict how
Yeah, I
everything's
hear
gonna
you. I
go,
hear you.
so you assume you'd have it every night, and then you get the full vote.
So this is like watching To Make a Millionaire. We're gonna ask the audience, they're gonna click their thing, you're gonna see the result on the screen,
That's right.
right?
All the votes show up right on the screen live for all the members, and so all the names start to appear, and you see how everybody's voting right up there. At least that's the way they're doing it now. It's a very public process. It's like everyone
It's a
could stand up
moderator's
at any point.
lifeline. How do we vote? Push your button? There you go.
That's it.
Hey,
It sounds like it has some benefits in
It
terms of
does.
efficiency and speed,
it
although I
does.
have to say, I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I like town meeting the way it's been, but I could be convinced otherwise.
And that may be what the members think. But at least we give them some information on an innovation that might work.
I think it should be a moderator-appointed committee. The moderator
Yeah,
runs
I do
town
too.
meeting. It's
Yes.
really,
Yeah.
so here's to Katie's point. Could we try it at a town meeting, and if we didn't like it, not do it? Could we do it as an experiment? Maybe do it at a fall town meeting and see how it goes, and if you don't, then go back to. Tradition is part of,
well, it sounds like the committee would at least vet some of
Yeah.
these, maybe talk with some people in other towns to see
Yes.
what their experience has been. and
I've
what-
got a list of every town that's already implemented
Yeah.
it, which vendor they picked, so you know which
Okay.
business model they followed. So we've got data, and we keep that current among the mass moderators, so.
And would we be using it enough if it's just gonna be standing votes or roll call votes rather than the quick voice votes? Then is it worth the expenditure?
Right. Or do people want it because it records, it puts a record out for all the representatives? So those are the things to weigh.
Then you might get a vendor who gives you a trial and lets you use that money towards the
might.
ultimate purchase.
They
Yeah,
might.
I think,
There's also new kinds of technology. If you've ever been to a trade show, there's all kinds of voting and trade show stuff that's happening on mobile devices now. My concern with that is security and people no longer town meeting members, hacking into networks, et cetera. So one of the benefits of these devices is they do promise a secure, closed network in the high school.
that's good.
But there could be something new coming. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
That's it? All right, I'll
That's
get
good.
back to you on this, the nature
Yeah.
of this legislative affairs thing.
Thank you, Bob.
All right,
Very good.
thanks for
Thank you
hard
very
work.
much. Thank
See you later.
Thank you for coming in.
Bye.
Okay, I'm gonna jump back to. Item 11, and I see Chad, is that, you wanna handle this?
Yeah, I
On
can.
this traffic commission?
Sure.
So we have a lot here, we have, looks like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 recommendations to changes to amendments to the traffic rules and orders, which are the chapter 6 of the town bylaw. Can I have a motion, or do we wanna talk, how do you wanna do, you wanna talk about it?
If there's any questions from
Does
from the
anyone have any
board,
questions
this
on
was,
any of them that?
November 8th, Traffic Commission met in the Cronin Room and discussed these issues. There were 2 items that were deferred, no action. Ferndale Road at Lathrop, there was a street sign request that was deferred pending more investigation, and Cliff Road, there was a handicap parking install, and that was also deferred pending further investigation. But
So just a little additional there on the first one, item 1, Hollis Babcock, that's been an ongoing discussion between the traffic commission, the police, the DPW director, and it's pressure being put on that neighborhood, mostly from the post office during the day. I did talk to the Reverend of Church of Our Savior, because she had concerns about Sundays, but Lieutenant Albers, who's the police department's representative on the traffic, they don't tag you don't tag on Sundays. Hourly restrictions don't apply on Sundays in the Commonwealth, so she felt more at ease with that. But I think this neighbor's been waiting for this for a long time. A lot of people don't realize in town that when you're a mail person who delivers your mail, that they go and they spend a significant part of their morning in the square laying that all up, and sometimes they go more than once a day. And so that creates inordinate pressure when you think about how many letter carriers there are in this town of 30,000, especially in the business districts, and they all park there. So I get that. And that's why we have service on.
And the other one of note from Chair Berkeley was the Edge Hill Road and Boulevard Street one. This is in preparation for the proposed changes in East Milton
Right.
Square deck, where you would take Edge Hill Road from the post office, make that a one-way going towards Cunningham, and take Boulevard Street coming the other way back. No longer allow people to take that right-hand turn at the Shell. You can get more traffic through the square. Those of you that take that road in the morning, it's backed up sometimes past Plymouth Ave, because those 3 lanes on the other side are only 2 lanes on the gas station side. So the idea is to flow it in one direction on Edge Hill and in the opposite direction on Boulevard.
I think we want to recommend this 5 years ago, and we referred it to Howard Stein Hudson, who agrees with it as well. They agree with this, so. Go ahead, Michael.
I just have one question, and that's the funding on the work at Edge Hill and Boulevard. Is that going to come out of the DPW budget? Or?
Yeah, it's
All the
probably
work
just some
does, yeah.
striping
Yeah.
issues. There was talk about potentially having diagonal parking on Edge Hill
Right.
to increase the number of parking spots and free up some of the constraints that weren't allowed with the parking on the deck, et cetera. I don't know if that was addressed at that, but it's mostly just striping and changing
So
some signs.
it's not a real budgetary impact?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the DPW absorbs most, because with their zero budget, most of the changes, signs, that usually comes out of their budget. I can't remember a request coming for money from the Traffic Commission. Okay, anyone else before can I have a motion then to approve the following recommendations, and then you can,
Do we need to read each
yeah, we need to
single
read each
one?
one, yeah, we need to read each one,
We
so
can
we'll split them up, so
Yeah.
there's 6, 2, 2, and 2? Or
Sure.
2, 2, and 2?
I'll start with the
Okay.
first two.
I need a motion first, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
I move to approve the following recommendations of the Traffic Commission. Amendments to the traffic rules and orders. Number 1.
Let's do a second. Do we have a second first, just on the motion?
Second.
Okay, now you can, go ahead.
Number 1, Article 5, Section 7, Hollis Street, Babcock Street, and Andrews Road. Install 2-hour parking Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Signs on both sides for the entire length, excluding already established handicap parking spot. Curtis Road, install a 2-hour parking Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Signs on both sides for entire length. Number 2, Article 8, Section 21, Hope Avenue, exclusion of commercial vehicles upon approval by Mass Department of Transportation.
3, Article 8, Section 24, Oak Street, install do not enter 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. on school days signs on Oak Street at Blue Hills Parkway. Number 4, Article 5, Section 1, Elliott Street, remove the first service zone parking spot east of the driveway of 36 Elliott Street and replace with a no parking sign. I think we just have to strike 4.
Correct.
Want to go to 5, Michael? One second.
Sure. Number 5, Article 8, Section 2, Blue Hills Terrace Street, install three-way stop signs at the intersections of Essex Road and Crown Street in conjunction with the ongoing roadway and sidewalk sidewalk reconstruction project. Number 6, Article 7, Section 1, Edge Hill Road and Boulevard Street. Support the proposed changes in the East Milton Square Deck project design, including creating a one-way designation on Edge Hill Road from Bryant Street to Boulevard Street, and on Boulevard Street from Edge Hill Road to Bryant Avenue, angled parking on Edge Hill Road along the northerly side, and establishing 3 lanes, including 1 right turn only lane on Boulevard Street in the easterly direction.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Mrs. McGetrick, were you here for this one? Were you here for the Essex Crown? Was that your, okay. I didn't think so. I knew you were. Okay, so, item 13, I don't see the rabbis coming in, so I'll just keep moving on, then we'll get back to this. So, item 14 is the approval of one-day liquor licenses, the Congregation Beth Shalom of the Blue Hills, the Eustis Estate, the Forbes House Museum, Mary M.B. Wakefield Charitable Trust. And the motion is, I'm gonna read them all for you, and then you can, I'll make it as, the motion is to approve one-day liquor licenses for Saturday, December 8th, 2018 for the Congregation Beth Shalom of the Blue Hills, Sunday, December 2nd, the Eustis Estate, Tuesday, December 4th for the Eustis Estate, Friday, December 7th for the Eustis Estate, and also for the Forbes House Museum and the Wakefield Estate for the Mary Historic Milton Trolley Tour. So what are we doing, a moving, okay. Saturday, December 8th for the Eustis Estate, Sunday, December 9th for the Eustis Estate, Sunday, December 16th for the Eustis Estate, Tuesday, December 18th for the Eustis Estate, Wednesday, December 5th for the Milton Club, Sunday, December 16th for the Milton Club, Sunday, December 2nd for the Milton Club, Saturday, December 15th for the Milton Club. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 15. This is the approval of 2019 liquor license renewals. Are these all in, Jen, or just the ones we have so far? Is that all? I thought we had more than that. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so this is our annual renewal of what I call our regular liquor licenses, which are our pouring licenses and our establishment licenses. And as you can see, we have listed here American Legion Post 114, Walston Golf Club, NPP Inc. doing business as Central Liquor Mart, Delaney Liquors doing business as East Milton Wine and Spirits, Craft and Crew, the Fruit Center Incorporated, Milton Fuller Housing Corporation, Milton Fuller Housing Corporation, they have one at each location, one on Bugle Ave and one at Brush Hill Road. Wharf Street Restaurant, also known as 88 Wharf. Welch Restaurant Management, also known as Abbey Park. Milton Opus LLC, doing business as Steel and Rye. Hojian Inc., doing business as Mr. Chan's, 566 Adams Street, which is also doing business as Navara. Lombardi Enterprises LLC, which is the plate at Milton Marketplace. And B&D Achero, which is Achero Sushi at 538 Adams Street. So we have
Second.
well, that was good. Very good. Okay. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we have the approval of 2019 Sunday opening permits. We have a motion to approve, and I'll keep going, to approve the request from 4 retailers for Sunday opening permits to sell alcohol between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., and those are Delaney Liquors doing business East Milton Wine and Spirits, Craft and Crew 25 Central, Central Liquor Mart 26 Central, and the Fruit Center 10 Bassett.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Approve of the extended New Year's Eve hours to 5 a.m. for 12/31. That went right over your head, didn't it?
5 a.m.
Proposed motion to our request of Abbey Park of 550 Adams Street, Navarre at 556 Adams, to extend hours of operation from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. on January 1st of 2019. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
2019, our entertainment licenses. Proposed motion here is to approve the following 29 entertainment license renewals. Milton Opus, DPA, doing business Steel and Rye, Welch's Restaurant, which is Abbey Park, Wharf Street Restaurant Group, Prime Pizza on 88 Wharf, 556 Adams Street, doing business Navarre, 556 Adams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We did that quick. It's only 8:25, we're moving right along.
Don't jinx it.
Okay, I know. Item number, here we go. Item number 19. We're going to invite Mr. Clark and Alyssa Cook, the president of the Milton Animal League. to give an animal shelter presentation, which and Therese, you're gonna join them as well? You here with them as well? You are more than welcome if that's why you're here. Just tell me you're coming up here with a backhoe and a machine to move this project forward.
Brought the hard hat.
That's good, because we're ready. Did I forget something?
No, no.
You sure?
Yeah, I was just curious about those Sunday liquor licenses. Are those renewals, or are they,
They have to do it because, I think of the blue laws on the Sundays between, you notice those are all liquor stores,
Yeah.
not, sir. The Sundays between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I think it was those ones. Are those the ones?
I just didn't know if they were already selling and they were renewing something that was ongoing, or this was like a first time?
Everyone good?
It's not the first time. It's
Okay.
it's
All right, that-
continual.
that-
Dogs
yeah,
good?
I was just curious.
I think the Sunday opening permit is a separate thing from their license.
How about
Okay.
that?
Thank you, Bill.
Good evening. Mr. Shaw want paper, I want shovels, and then we'll see hard
We're
hats.
splitting 3 of these, because they're
That's okay.
massive. If you want to look in detail, they can definitely do so. We didn't want to waste any. We're not cutting any trees yet, so we couldn't, you know.
These are the complete set, you wanna see them,
Yeah.
This I already know.
switch off for that one? Yep. I'll tell you which one. We'll start with that one. You have in front of you a packet that starts with this image. I don't have that for there, so you have it in front of you. The top piece here is the site that was chosen by the selectmen in July of 2015 for the animal shelter. We have taken, since that time, and worked with a committee, with the Animal League, and we have come up with plans for a building. That's what these are. The building is pretty much there. There's the site plan behind you. The access road would be on the bottom. Parking lot is behind, I don't have, I'll show. This part here are trees, golf course is down here. Building is here. I'm 62 feet off the boundary of 11 Jill Kathleen to the back of the building. And I'm 87 feet from the building to the edge of the access road pavement. The lease area is on the other side of the pavement. It's down on this line down here. The committee has met with the abutters. The committee is made up of people selected by the selectmen. The Animal League is on it. There's a neighborhood representative. Who else is on
We
that?
have 2 architects, general contractor, so we have a breadth and depth as well as town representation as well on the committee. So
Right.
we've looked at it from a number of different facets in terms of what the right spot in that parcel of land is for the building, and you know, how to position it both in the most the best location from a neighbor perspective, from the golf course, from an access, running the utilities, a number of different elements, but also from a cost perspective, making sure that we're keeping in mind what we're going to need to do from a site clearing and foundation and putting the building there, because we're going to be the first ones putting anything up there,
All right.
so.
One of the issues with the neighbor in the back is the neighbor moved in 2017. They have a pool here, our building's here. Within the 62 feet, we're trying to be as good a neighbor as we can. The design of the building is such that it's a masonry building. The typical runs would be inside the building. The outside pen area, when they go to clean one of the pens, the dog can go outside. There's another pen put over here. Pens going across the back of the building. We've tried to remove everything off the back of the building so that we're not in their face, but at the same time, we're not trying to have something that's distracting to them while they're using their property. We've talked about and designed a raised berm that we can build across the back of the property line. We've talked about putting in a vegetated screen. The abutter had originally asked for arborvitaes of a certain height. Putting arborvitaes out here would be like ringing the dinner bell for the deer. By putting in spruce trees, they grow wider, taller, thicker, and they're pretty much deer resistant. We'd have to have another one of those massive winters in order to have the deer eat the spruce. We have talked about leaving anything that is native and natural in here that is over a certain size, whether 3 to 4 inches, it stays. What we have in here now is just some bushes that we can add to the understory that could be in this area. There's no desired use of this particular area at this time. Everything is the building, the front. We did put, this is a piece of property that belongs to the developer up here. It doesn't have any frontage. The town's property comes up, goes like this, and we own this piece down here. This is that other the other property next door. Can you switch back to this plan? Good. We took this project to Conservation Commission back in August, and the Conservation Commission deems this piece and this piece as wetlands. We will abide by what their request for a wetland is. The green line is the 100-foot setback, so we had to file for a notice of intent. We did. We have an order of conditions. The pink line is the 25-foot zone of non-disturbance. We're not coming anywhere near that particular piece. All of our drainage goes that way, goes that way. We're not sending anything into this wetland. We have a driveway here, a driveway here. You'll come in here, park, angle parking, 7 spots here. Overflow parking is the area down here. And if you go to, not you, Jen, if you use the colored image that you have, it would be in the, this is for a second. This corner down in here is where the parking will be. Here. Yep. That is the area that, when Quarry Hills first opened, they had a, their temporary clubhouse was in that area. The area has never grown back. There's no trees. It's just a big gravel lot at this time. We've used it for a couple of things in the town. When we did Canton Ave, and we had to store some dumpsters out there for soil storage. We did. That's about it. We have setbacks that we've set back from the property next door as required by zoning. Side setbacks, we have our rear setback. They're all identified. The building itself is, it'll be a municipal building, and it will have solar. We're doing everything we can to make it energy efficient. What am I missing?
That's probably it for the building design. From a league perspective, what we did was worked with the architect, continued to look at the design of the building and refined it and minimized and tried to take out as much of the extraneous rooms and spaces that we didn't feel like we needed. First and foremost, we're small. We're volunteer run. We don't have a giant staff to be able to man the building anyway, so we don't want some giant, massive, shelter. It is definitely larger than what we have now. Anything is going to be larger than what we have now. That's inevitable.
A pup tent will be larger than what you have
yeah,
now.
exactly. So we have gone through, we've tried to optimize up front while we were working through the programming phase with the architect, eliminating, meet and greet cat rooms or meet and greet dog rooms, and instead saying, okay, that's something we could do in this kind of multi-use space, and really engineering the rooms and the spaces to be able to be leveraged in a multitude of different ways. So the plan that we have now represents already having gone through that. Our next step will be, we know we need to look at, the square footage, the design. We have gone through from a league perspective and done another evaluation if we needed to, from a funding perspective, reevaluate what is in there. So we've had that conversation internally. We are, to help us make that decision and to help us look at the details, have contracted, or the town has contracted with a cost estimator, and they're going to provide us with very detailed cost estimation breakdown based on what's basically in this package. It'll tell us everything from, end to end, I'm assuming top to bottom, and possibly even some places where we could get some additional value engineering opportunities from a cost perspective. We also anticipate, as we go into the construction phase, continuing to value engineer. Instead of separate offices, a shared office, things like that don't require redoing entire construction plans. Yeah.
If we go to the next slide, just hit down. There's five, go back to that one. There's five in them there.
There was?
That one there.
There's five.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we talked about the inside of the
Exactly.
building. Since these images were taken, we took we took those runs off the back. We took this one and put it over here. This is an outside patio, so we put it down here. There's an 8-foot wall right here, so there's a set of steps to take and put that run here. We took those two runs, put them over here. We took our generator, we moved the generator down into this area here.
Bill, could I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yep.
What was the motivation for removing the runs from the back of the building and putting them off to the
The
side?
neighbors.
The neighbors, yeah.
Yeah.
So you
We're
made it,
trying to do everything we can to minimize
Yeah.
impact to those neighbors.
so that's an accommodation you made for them?
Yes.
Yes.
That's
The-
great.
Yeah.
The moving the runs, moving the generator down, putting in the berm with the vegetation, filling the back with more trees than are out there now. If you were to look at it now, there are no real trees. If you use the page that looks like this, the major trees are identified on that page. This is the filing that we did for, this is based on the filing we did with conservation, which had to identify the trees.
So yes,
Again.
that was one of the adjustments that we did, that we were able to accommodate, and it was, we did look at adjusting the building on the site, but
We turned the
it wasn't
building,
gonna,
it originally designed, if you go to the last picture for this. Okay, here is the access road, originally designed by the architect. This was his building, this is the way he wanted to do it.
Right.
It puts it too close over here to this, to the abutter here. So we've taken the building, we've turned it 90 degrees. We brought it closer in here. We stayed, can we go to that one? Sorry, switching you
we've
back
got a
and forth.
lot of photos and
We've
drawings
moved
we've
this
been
thing back
working
and
on.
forth so that I've met with the golf course, and the golf course, you can see from the colored image that you have that where the green is, where the tees are, and on it you can see how close it is to those holes. We've met with them. I met with them. I've discussed it with them. I've explained the driveways. There's nothing happening in here. With the Conservation Commission, we're putting drainage in here, but at the same time, we're not taking out the trees. It's natural drainage. It's already a swale. All we're going to do is clean up the invasives that are in it. We're not taking out anything else. There is no parking here. The extra parking that was originally here is now down in the gravel lot. We have a garage into the building for the animal control officer. We have this particular piece. If you go back to those color images again.
So she'll be able to pull inside with an animal, so whatever she picks up, she can go right inside
Exactly,
with
that
it.
was intended. We,
Right.
instead of having, I think one of the original designs had it similar to how we have now, you just pull up outside and then it was a separate entrance. But one of the asks was, it's safer to.
It is, absolutely.
Strays, you know, we don't know anything about their temperament, being able to drive right in.
I already
And
have them inside the building.
it actually opens directly to the stray hold kennels are right there too. So it's kind of easy, immediate access. They don't have to be coming through the shelter anywhere and being exposed any further than they need to be.
We have a, I think we originally started calling it the community room. The community room has the ability to be used for a classroom type deal, but at the same time it can be used for a shelter. If there's a need to put animals at the shelter, it gives them a bigger space that they can then take and put animals within a shelter into this area.
It's not a bad idea because there has not been a disaster in this country in the last 20 years, including what's taking place in California right now, where animals have been abandoned in massive rates and communities wind up having to bear the burden of how to care for them in a mass shelter. So that's a good idea on that aspect.
That's part of the intent, yeah. And why we left it in there when we did start doing some of the value engineering was exactly that reason.
We have a, we've designed it for the generator, but the generator is not to keep it blowing like this, it's for.
Life safety, right?
Yes.
Life safety, right.
Period. It's to keep the water, make sure the water in the sewer runs.
Yeah.
It's a force main coming out of here. It's a, if we go back to this one, we'll go through the utility part of it again.
And just one more thing to note, I mean, you can go back, but just, as opposed to the current shelter and many other shelters that you go to where dogs will have indoor-outdoor kennel runs, so they'll have a portion that's inside, there'll be a guillotine door, they can run through it, they'll be outside. We actually intentionally designed this so it's indoor-indoor, and the second indoor part will have translucent roofs so they get access to sunlight. But it will help us with noise control and minimization, especially being, you know, where we are in the golf course and the neighbors, and the building being masonry, shouldn't be any noise impact whatsoever.
I think
Yeah.
number 4, that, go to the next one, here. It's here. No, that's the side. Inside.
Might be one more down.
Go one more.
No.
I can use that one. Go up one more. No. Okay, this is the
Yeah.
back of the building. The back of the building, this is a plastic roof so that it does what Alyssa just said, that there's light in there. You can see that there's a ton of windows in here. It's an 8-foot patio between here and here. There's a sidewalk that runs along the back of the building. But this is glass so that this is over the dog, the inside dog runs, pens. They feel like they're outside. There's lots of sunlight for them. How we came up with the design of this, I think many of you may remember that down in the loop, we had the full-size color images taped to the wall, and we left it there for about 2 months so that people would take and look at it. Which one did they like? Committee came back and they had asked different people that had gone there, which one do you like, which one? It came back that they wanted it to look like New England. They didn't want a flat roof. They wanted it to be similar to what their houses are. It also gives you more light because of the windows that are here. So again, it becomes energy efficient. And last one, please. We have, our utilities come up into Jill Kathleen to here. The fire hydrant here. We're going to wind up connecting from this fire hydrant to a fire hydrant down here on the access road. We'll take and connect from that hydrant to another hydrant that's down here. It's already in place. So this project will loop the water that goes to Jill Kathleen and to Quarry Lane. So it's a water quality issue, it's a public safety issue. If something happens to the line, they get fed no matter what.
Timeline.
So, next steps. We have reached out to our
I'm
major
showing my
donors.
impatience tonight.
Yeah, I know, don't worry. We all have impatience, don't worry about it, you're not alone in that boat. We have reached out to our major donors to set up a time for a meeting. We've sent all of the plans, have got everything now finalized. We've done what we can with regards to adjustments with regards to the abutters. We know where it's going to be. We have the detailed cost estimation coming back. The purpose of that meeting really will be to say, here's where we are, here's what the plan looks like, here's what the cost estimate looks like, what we've raised, what does that commitment look like, where do we need to get to from a fundraising perspective, and or, looking at the design of the building to obviously reducing cost means reducing the footprint. We didn't do that in advance because there's cost associated with doing that as well. We have to re-engage the architect to make the design changes. I only want to do that once, I only want to pay for that once. It does not make sense to keep going back to do that. So if, if there are changes we need to make, we'll do that one time with any changes that are recommended out of that meeting, as well as anything that, we from our side have also come up with. But that's really the next step. Once we have that letter of commitment, we will go by the word of the funding agreement, I guess it is, with regards to kind of how we proceed from there. Going out to bid is not, my recollection is going out to bid is not dependent on having that letter of agreement or, funding commitment. However, acceptance of an actual contract and moving forward to construction actually is what, we need to make sure we have the funding available to do so. So that's where we're at right now from a.
So if you do, if you did, then what's your timeline? What are you thinking to go up?
So the next step would be going to bid for the construction services. I have to now recuse myself from that comment because I have no idea how long these bid processes take from a town perspective. So I don't know, Bill, if you want to, if there's like if it's a predefined amount of time that
No,
has to be
30
out
to
for.
60 days.
Yeah.
It'll be out there for 30 days because of the cost. And then how long does it take us to accept the bid?
So, Alyssa, just a quick question.
Yeah.
You have how many members in Milton Animal League?
Of the league?
Yeah.
Well, I guess by members we mean the volunteers. There's probably
Yeah.
about 40 or so volunteers.
And those 40 volunteers have raised how much money towards this? I already know the answer to the question. I think I do, but
Yeah.
I'm not talking donation. I'm talking what you people have, your efforts have raised.
Yeah, so, we have in our, building fund around 750,000.
And did you already
And some of that has already gone
Gone,
towards the
right.
construction services.
So add that, add
Yeah.
them together, how much is it?
So we have 550,000.
No, add them together,
Oh,
what
add
you've
'em.
raised total.
Oh, add them together in total?
Yeah.
So we have in total 1.7 million plus, we have another account that's our operating expenses that we can use towards this, but obviously we also need to operate at the end of the day, as well. So, realistically, we will need to raise probably, this is without any sort of commitment of funding from anybody, we will probably need to raise about, and without the detailed cost estimation, about $2 million. And so there are, within that, there is also commitments to funding and things like
Right.
that. So, 2.3. I read that note. So that's, what we're looking at.
2.3 in additional.
To what we have in the bank.
In addition to
Yeah,
what you have.
yeah, so what we have, ready and available to liquidate.
Okay. Questions?
I have a few.
Yeah, of course.
Bill, could you first of all send around the agreement between the board and the Animal League, just so that everybody's got the agreement from a few years ago?
Yes.
That has all the next steps and who does what. Has the issue with the neighbor with the pool, has that, now that I assume you've shown them these moved pens, is that resolved the dispute, or is there still any issue that's unresolved with the neighbors that you're aware of?
I don't know that you would call it resolved, but we are where we are, where we've done everything we can
But has the,
physically to the building.
well, has the
They
neighbor?
don't like what they still don't like it. We gave our engineer a charge to try to move that building away from where it is now, try to find me a different place within that area. He turned the building back to the original way, and it comes off that it's like 25 feet off of the property. That doesn't work. At least in my estimation, it doesn't work. This way, we're at least 62 feet off the back. That's better. You have a 25-foot setback that you can now take and fill with vegetation to give them a buffer. The style of the building itself is such that it's not the sound doesn't travel out of the building. You're not going to hear the dogs barking. You're more likely to hear a dog barking from Quarry Lane up in Gilpath Lane than you are coming
From
out
this
of this
facility,
particular
right.
place. You may hear a dog barking at the horse farm, you may hear a dog barking off the access road or the golf course, before you're gonna hear a dog barking out of this building.
And there are significant animals at the horse farm, correct? Outside?
There are.
Yeah. I
So it
do
sounds as
believe-
though there's still a dispute here.
Yeah,
with
and I
the-
do
the
believe
veterans.
the town council has been weighing in on this, am I correct? Yes.
I've brought it to him, showed it to him, and he's like, there's nothing here.
Right.
All right, and
They
then,
have
Nothing to
been, but
prevent
to
you.
be clear, they have been made aware of all of these, contingencies and what we have been able to do. They came to our last, committee meeting. We showed them the plans, we showed them the buffer, where we were able to move the pens, talked a little bit about why, moving the building altogether was not, really feasible. And as to what their next steps are, I think that's, unclear to us.
okay, and then is there any estimate right now in terms of utility costs or maintenance for the building? Do you have any preliminary or ballpark estimates?
No.
I think Bill's been following that though too. Bill, and that's where I think the
Bill
soul and
Reggie
all
is one
that
of
came
the
in. Bill's,
members
Bill's been,
of our committee.
But no, I meant more with the redesign. I thought there had been an estimate at one point, or at least an idea of what the annual utility cost is. The town's gonna be responsible for the utility cost. The league is responsible for the building, but the ongoing maintenance and running the building will be the town's responsibility. I thought we had an estimate a few years ago for the original design. I could be wrong. I just was wondering, now that you've changed the design a little bit, whether you've had any, and you said you're trying to make it energy efficient, whether you've seen any reduction from what may have been estimated before, but maybe I'm misremembering that there was an estimate. I thought there was.
it has to be better than what you're at now, because I believe, if my memory's right, it's on electric heat, all right?
Yeah.
Electric heat, electric baseboard, which is just cranking away. There is zero efficiencies in that facility, none.
No
Whether it's water,
insulation.
sewer, nothing.
No
It's just,
insulation, the windows are,
No, but I don't want to compare
Yeah.
against the existing building. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to know what the
Yeah.
what the
No,
costs are going to be going
To
forward.
my knowledge, we don't have anything that has been estimated
Okay.
on that. Definitely maybe
I
see if
will
we
ask
can
Mr.
follow up.
Ritchie to,
yeah.
Yeah.
If he has anything.
we'll sit down and
Yeah.
try to figure something for it.
He is. He's, I've had the same discussion with him, because my concern was like, we were gonna have a big, how much, and obviously he's pushed for the things that
He's
you've talked
looking at
about.
the mechanicals, and
Yeah.
he's poured over the mechanicals. I know they were changed. The generator has changed, the mechanicals have changed because of his input too. No, I don't like that one, no, that one's too big, needs to be here, the different kinds. Placement of doors inside, walls inside. He's had a whole lot to say about.
He challenges us on any design elements.
Yep.
Do you need a door there? Do you need two doors there? Could you just have one? And, to make sure, from a cost savings and efficiency and ongoing maintenance and upkeep as well.
Right.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the,
Okay.
what's the material?
So that's
for the
good from
floor,
your question
walls?
point of view, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I just wanted to reconfirm a couple things. I'm pretty sure that I'm on the same page, but
Yes.
the neighbor came to you with an objection. You listened to their objection, tried to make accommodation as best you could. The dog pens were originally situated in the rear of the building. You've since moved them to the right and to the left of the building. You've offered in your plans, you intend to plant, what is it, Bill?
We're gonna create a
Magnolias?
berm. We'll create a 4-foot berm and then put the trees on top of the 4-foot berm.
On the berm, okay.
So if you have a 4-foot berm and you put 12 to 16-foot trees in there, you're already 16 to 20 feet above what would have been in there now. Right now, there's nothing in there.
I think that's a
And
great.
it's a double row so that
Yeah, we'll
they
stagger 'em.
stack,
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
stagger, and they'll fill in. And if you do spruce, for as much as they grow up, they also grow out, and they'll start growing together.
And as I understand it too, the dogs themselves, when they're in the pens, they'll always be attended by.
They're
a
always with the
volunteer.
human. We never leave our dogs unattended, and we only ever take one out at a time. It might be one in each pen, but it's always, you know, one walker to one dog, or one family and a walker to a dog. But they're not just left out in the pen to have a
Yeah.
play by themselves.
It's not a dog park.
No, yeah.
I think you've done, yeah, some great work here. Every member of the committee's done great work, particularly Dan Daly and Therese
Yeah.
Desmond, who I see in the back. So
Yep.
Congrats. Keep it up.
Okay, Michael? Thank you,
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very
for
much.
The opportunity.
thank you. Do you need one of these? I think I have one of these.
You don't want.
I don't, I am good with that. You might need it, I won't need it. Okay. Let me go back here. I'm gonna go back to item 13. I see our friend, the rabbi, please come and join us. Rabbi Alfred Benjamin is going to be joining us with a discussion on Milton Youth Sports Scholarship policies and website transparency, which I'm sure you're going to elaborate on.
Okay.
You're not nervous to speak in public, are you? Kidding you.
I just need to
Get to the page.
cue this up a second. Let me see if it's gonna work. Hold on a second, okay? Let me see why this isn't. Okay, I have a hard copy, but there was something I wanted to also add. We can do without it.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you
Welcome.
for
Coming in.
putting me on tonight's agenda. I appreciate it. I come here as a Milton resident with a suggestion that I hope will put all Milton residents on equal footing when it comes to information about Milton Youth Sports scholarships. Several weeks ago, quite by accident, it came to my attention that only some of the Milton Youth Sports that are listed on the town's Park and Rec website page offer information about scholarship assistance, while other Milton Youth Sports websites say nothing at all. Out of curiosity, I contacted all the Milton Youth Sports groups that gave no scholarship information on their website and asked the same question of the contact person there. What is your policy regarding children who would like to participate but who come from families with challenging financial situations? The good news is that almost across the board, I was informed that if they are approached by a family with a request for financial assistance, they are ready to help in whatever way they can. That's actually more than good news. It's great news. But there's a difference between when information is proactively offered, when a request for financial assistance is welcomed, versus when it is not. Here's an excerpt of how the Milton Youth Lacrosse website encourages scholarship inquiries. If you need a fee waiver or have other extenuating circumstances, email us, the website says. If a fee waiver is needed, please send us a message with a brief explanation. In addition, we may be able to assist with equipment needs. I consider that a best practice way to share this information. Milton Girls Softball goes even further. They have created a partnership so assistance can come from the Milton Residence Fund. That's on their website. For those youth sports that are ready to help, but don't say so on their websites, I'm reminded of the Mamas and Papas song, The In Crowd. I'm in with the in crowd. I know what the in crowd knows. Remember that song? I know what the in crowd knows. In other words, there could be the appearance of some people knowing that scholarships are available, while others do not. So here's my recommendation. As part of the privilege of using town facilities and having contact information listed on the town's website, this select board will require Milton youth sport organizations to put their scholarship information and policies either on their homepage or registration page. It's pretty simple. Two final things to note. One, I'm only suggesting this policy to apply to youth activities that are listed on the town's website or use town facilities. And two, there's no requirement for these youth organizations to offer scholarships. If they don't or can't, then that information should just be made clear, upfront, transparent. This policy only applies to those organizations that are ready to offer financial assistance. And as I said, that's pretty much all of them. Youth participation in town sports is a great equalizer and unifier. It has the power to create positive relationships between children and families from diverse backgrounds and cultures. And that is always a good thing. Thank you very much. So I sent a copy of this.
Yes.
Without the link to the Mamas and Papas song.
We'll take that,
You would have
too.
liked to hear
Your
I
own.
don't know
You
why
never
it didn't-
fail to disappoint me.
I don't
Never.
know, I don't know, I didn't come up. But I'm happy to take any questions. If you have any.
Did you look at any other communities besides what you did here? No, just here.
Didn't need to. Like I said, some were so upfront and eager to show how they're ready to help.
So I'm trying to think of the road that we take to how we do this. That's just, I'm thinking of, maybe we hold a forum, we bring everybody in. Tell them, here's what we're thinking of doing, here's how we're gonna do it. We design a template to how we're gonna do it, to follow your model, and we implement it. I don't think it's that hard to do. It is, you know, sometimes, I mean, you don't need me to tell you this. There are things that often are overlooked in life and unseen unless you can step over a stone, unless you kick it and suddenly you moved it and you see something you would have never seen.
And these are volunteer organizations.
Oh,
And a
yeah,
lot of times it's
absolutely.
just an oversight that, that now is, like you said, noticed.
Right? You've turned over a stone that no one's been seeing, but it was there all along.
There all along.
Okay. Comments? That's what I'm thinking, we take the lead in this and maybe we hold a forum and bring everybody in, say, look, here's what it is, here's a way we can address it. listen to their concerns and make it happen. It's not a big, this doesn't take a town meeting vote. I mean, this is something we can do with ease to help someone who needs help. Or to
Let them know that it's there.
let them know that it's there, yeah. Let them know it's there.
And I'd like to thank Mike, because when I first noticed this, I went in and talked to him about it, just to get a sense of the lay of the land and who's responsible for what, and it was very helpful.
Of course he was. What do you think? You always have an opinion, so what do you think?
I think that it's a
think that
great
would work?
town to live in, and little tweaks make it better.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. So how does information from a private organization get onto the town website?
Most of the information that the rabbi is referring to comes through the Parks Department, but there are entities that are using, take Milton Youth Hockey, for instance, which is using the Yulin Rink where Milton, the town of Milton holds the permit.
I was just wondering about making sure that organizations have some help making sure that they, the information gets onto the page and maybe in a format that's uniform, and 'cause that really helps with transparency. So that rather than to just say, do this, just say, well, here, this is the help that we can offer.
That's
That
what I
was
think
my
the
only
template, I
thought.
think if we create a template,
Yeah.
that's the help that's how.
Yeah, I was just wondering who does that.
A lot of the website design with youth sports programs is run by one or two website developers. League Sports, or, you know, I have an SI Play app on my phone which supports each of the youth organizations that subscribe to it. So a lot of it could be, you know, a web-based solution. And I think the forum's a good idea, and you bring in, you know, the IT piece of it, where you can see scrolling advertisements and things like that on a lot of these websites.
And like I said, there are three that already have a good model
Right,
for how to do
right.
this.
Right.
Just right there. Here's the information, here's who to contact, here's how we make sure it's confidential. So it's not like any group doesn't have a place to look to see how it can be done well.
Who was it, Milton Girls Softball, who else?
Yeah,
Lacrosse.
Milton-
Lacrosse.
Milton Lacrosse. I think there was one more.
So I know many of the board members of Milton Girls Softball.
But the connection with the Milton Residence Fund, I mean, that's brilliant. That's what the money is for, is to help families who are
Were
Or
there
in
any that
distress.
you think, so if we did this, not if, so we create a template, we bring it on and say, okay, use our website, this is a issue, here's how we want to help to deal with this. Do you think there'd be any that, other than the Milton Residence Fund, that have difficulty doing this for their members, funding it or supporting them?
I don't understand the question.
So, I know, maybe I'm not phrasing it right.
Oh, you're asking if there might be an organization that
Yes.
can't afford to help. There may be, but as Rabbi Benjamin said, they're volunteer organizations, and
Okay.
They can
they're
say,
doing their best.
Unfortunately, we're not able,
To
Right.
do it,
yeah, but then people know.
okay,
Oh, that's understandable.
I get that, okay. Go ahead, Michael.
So if we make a policy, right, if we want to make it a policy, it seems to me, then we could make it mandatory with respect to what goes on the town website. And then the template, we could mandate that this is the template for the purposes of the town, to the town's website. And then it seems to me, with respect to their private websites, it's probably a suggestive suggestion and a suggestive policy, because they're a private organization. They do use the town facilities,
Website.
but they pay, some of them pay, so it seems, and my
But they
guess is.
abide by the town rules to
Right.
use,
The
Right.
website.
to use the
Or
website or to
the-
use the
for the
fields.
facilities,
Right.
yeah.
So
But my
town's
guess is
allowed
they-
to make rules.
Yeah, my guess is they'd probably go along with,
I
you know,
agree.
if you have it mandatory for the town website and suggestive, and maybe we could make it mandatory for their websites, but my guess is that we probably accomplish the goal by making it suggestive for their websites as well, and once we get it on our website, you know, it's easier for them. So that's what I'm thinking, just in terms of putting it into a policy.
It would be helpful to know if an organization isn't able to help, or maybe not to help as many young athletes as they have called to. I'd be interested in somehow having a mechanism to collect that information. I mean, you're talking about the Milton Residence Fund. Well, it would, who knows? It may be something that we really need to look at. Sports is not every young person's first activity, but a lot of young people do want to play sports, and it's a really healthy outlet. So I just think it would, if we're doing this, it would be worthy to ask organizations to let us know somehow at the Selectman's office.
Can I ask a question of Mike about the policy? So were you proposing the policy committee take this on and create a policy, bring it back to us at a future date?
I think that's probably the best way to make it happen. I mean, in the interim, you know, you could have a forum and try to get going on it earlier, but just in order to have it in place, you know, I think a written policy probably makes sense.
Because I would, before you suggested the idea of a policy, I was thinking maybe we could just ask the town administrator to be in touch with, if we had a consensus that this is
Right.
what we
Yeah.
wanted to do, which I think we do,
Yeah.
could we ask the town administrator to reach out to the organizations and just let them know this is the direction we're going? But if you want to create it as a policy, you know, maybe the town administrator could sort of have a preliminary conversation, let them know this is coming, and that we'll be adopting a policy. Rabbi, I just wanted to ask you, did you talk with any of the park commissioners about this issue?
I was ready to, but I just went kind of.
He wanted to
source.
start at the top. He wanted to go right to the top.
No, I went to the source of just collecting information.
Right.
Because it's really not the park commissioner's job to do this. The website isn't his responsibility. And the whole scholarship piece, again, isn't.
No, I agree. I
isn't part
just
of
mean
his
in terms of
responsibility.
keeping them as an independent elected board, because the park department is really under them, just to keep them, you know, for sake of collaboration among boards and communication, just so we could bring them into the loop and just let them, maybe we could ask the town administrator to let the parks director inform his board that we're talking about this and that we're going to create a policy and get their support,
I think we can
ideally.
do- I think we can do this faster versus, I
Yes.
think we can do this pretty quick.
Yeah.
As you know, as you saw a few Saturdays ago, kindness and compassion are never hard to find in this community. So,
Like I said, I think for the
we
most
can do
part,
this.
it's just an oversight
okay.
with an easy fix.
Rabbi, was this something that was brought to your attention or something you noticed over time?
Well, I went to, that's a good question. I went to sign up my son for Learn to Skate,
Uh-huh,
and I know hockey's an expensive sport.
sure.
So actually, what I was ready to see when I signed up, believe it or not, was a little box that said, would you add X amount
Sure.
to help those who might need help? I was just ready to see that. And just, I mean, fortunately, we're financially well enough, doing well enough to be able to afford that program and other programs, and I was just ready to tack on some.
Right.
And then there was nothing.
For some
So
of the-
that's when
yeah.
I found that curious because of all the sports.
Well, I
Hockey
wonder.
can be pretty pricey.
Yeah, hockey, definitely, and I wonder too, lacrosse, given the pads and the sticks and the helmets and the, you know, cleats and so on and so forth, it's a little costlier than some of the other sports, and maybe lacrosse, like, was, you know, very, very aware of that and proactively included that for that reason. But if you follow that sort of approach, then it would stand to reason that the hockey programs would do the same, and they're not. So, but like you said, it's, you know.
And as a matter of
an
fact,
oversight, I think.
after I signed up for Learn to Skate, and you have to become part of USA Hockey to do that. So we got this in the mail, and the parent handbook, and it starts off with, you know, focus on the child and the child's experience and safety and the behavior of parents. And next is budgeting. Talks about getting used equipment and talk to your local people about how to get used equipment. So this stuff came here, but it wasn't local. Didn't show up locally. So I just smiled. I said, they get it. They get it. It's a big deal. Especially if you have 4 kids playing.
Yeah, I will say, though, Milton Youth Hockey does a very good equipment swap at Cunningham Hall when the season starts. It's not very well announced. I think they could do a better job of announcing that. You walk into Cunningham Hall, and there are 10 tables like this full of skates, gloves, helmets, you name it. But
Right.
again, it's
So if that's on the website,
transparency.
that's on the
Right.
website, the beginning,
Well, you want
Right.
something?
that you know,
Yeah.
that makes a big difference. As long as there's a washing machine somewhere.
So who's gonna put together the template? That's kind of the next, put together a template. Is it something that you have an idea on, Rabbi, or is it something?
I think we could sit down and come up with something and pass it by the chair or the board, and
I'll gladly help with whatever you
I'll
want.
reach out to the,
I want to get it to you faster versus
Wouldn't be hard to
sooner.
figure out the citizens
I
have.
think you could ask them
Faster
for a
versus
template.
later.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think that's a nice thing too, is to say, we're interested in doing this, do you have a suggestion for a template? And then they feel like it's not,
I agree, that's where I think
it's
the
not
flow of
put upon
having,
them, but
right, give them some
It's-
buy-in,
yeah, buy-in.
especially the ones you've mentioned, they were smart enough to see this and understand it, they obviously living with it. Let's them buy into it, so it's a collaborative here, instead of just us saying, hey, here's what we're gonna do. And I don't think it'll be hard to do.
And so even the equipment swap, it's
Yeah,
not on the
there you go.
website.
To see that.
That's a big deal.
So could we ask the town administrator or his designee, you might want to delegate this to someone in town hall, to have the initial conversation with the clubs, come up, ask for them for a template, and then bring it to the policy committee and work with the policy committee to hopefully get something to us soon, next month?
And
So-
even in advance of that, to Richard's point, I mean, you could do, I think the town administrator can do it, and I just think about the policy to make sure it doesn't get lost.
Yes,
Just so
I
we have a
agree.
record of
Yeah.
it. But I think you can just go ahead and do it, and then we'll kind of fill in to have a written record of it, so it doesn't, it maintains itself.
We'll codify it. That's all.
It's a good
We'll
town,
make it real.
just little tweaks to make it better.
You're a good man, thank you. Go home. Go home to your family. You've been out long enough.
All right, appreciate your time.
I'll see
Thank you,
Thank you
bye-bye.
very much. Take care. Okay. So now we gotta jump all the way back to. Did all the 1 days, 15, 16, 17, we're moving right along. We did the animal shelter.
Wednesday?
Okay, 20, boards of committee appointments, the council on aging, we have a motion before us to appoint Mary Jane Campbell of 2 Mount Laurel Path, Carolyn Johnson of 88 Decker Street, Mary Ellen Sullivan of 50 Elliott, Marie Zinkus of 43 Westfield to serve as an associate non-voting. She's the only associate non-voting though, right?
No, they all are.
They're all of these,
And one
non-voting
more
members
in
of the
your hand.
council on aging, as well as Caroline Kinsella, through November of 2019. Do I have a second?
Second.
Did we
Hold on.
read all the names? I thought we skipped over a couple of them.
Oh, no, I did, so let me do it again. So I did, because when he handed that to me, I did, I missed one, so
Yeah,
let me
because-
go back. So I did Carolyn Johnson, Marjorie Mahoney of 50 Elliott, Janet Mullen of 35 Elliott, Mary Ellen Sullivan of 50 Elliott, Marie Zinkus of 43 Westfield to serve as associate non-voting members, and I'm adding to that Caroline Kinsella. These members will be non-voting on the council on aging through November of 2019.
Did I hear Mary Jane Campbell?
I did, I started with
Okay,
her, she was
great.
first.
Okay, great.
I just went back, when he handed them to me, I skipped one line, so I'm back to that.
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah? You saying yeah or no? Oh,
No, I'm waiting to vote.
All those,
I'm waiting to
all those
vote.
in favor? Aye.
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 Usually, I picked up on your body, when
No, wait,
when
no.
the head goes down, there's a question coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Item 21, boards and committees. This is a motion to, this is to reappoint though, right? They're already on that, we're reappointing?
Correct.
So this is to reappoint John A. Cronin of 130 Wendell Park, or Roy Walker of 452 Truman Parkway, and Richard Neely of 23 Russell Street to serve on the Town Government Study Committee through November of 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And the final motion is boards and committees. This is a motion, this is to yours, this is to add Brian Furs of 630 Brush Hill Road to serve on the Traffic Mitigation Committee. Is he gonna be a planning board rep?
Yes.
Second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We are done. Mr. Dennehy.
Town Administrator's Report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Just want to make special note, I attended the tree lighting on the East Milton deck Sunday. Very, very well-attended event. The weather held off. I'd like to thank Darrell Elliott for his 4 years as president of the Milton Chamber of Commerce and all the good work he's done down there, both on his own and with the town, and welcome Dr. Kimberly Hart, who's going to succeed him down there. They were both in attendance. Thank all the business partners down there that took place that evening. Thank the Kiwanis Club for all the gifts. Vance Welsh for his hospitality at Novara. It was a very busy night with reservations down there, and must have been 150 or 200 kids that came through to see good old St. Nick. So that was a wonderful event down there Sunday night. Tree plantings are going on. Some residents may notice a tree in front of their house that they did not ask for. What took place was the Shade Tree Advisory Committee has done an unbelievable amount of work. Streets like Rose Street, where I live, Buckingham Road, what they did was they took a look at those streets, and over time they have lost their tree-lined look. So streets like Rose Street and Buckingham Street have seen a dozen or 2 dozen street trees placed in front of people's homes. We did receive some phone calls that people did not want the tree. Public Works will certainly go out and replace that tree somewhere else. But for the most part, 90–95% of those trees were very well received. I want to thank A. Thomas and Sons and Town Tree, who are out there planting them. Hope to get 175 in the ground before cold weather comes. Having said that, guilty of it myself, but I would ask the residents to start removing street hockey equipment and basketball hoops from the roadways as winter is approaching. Plowable storms, those wonderful toys for our children sometimes get in the way of plows and sanders. So it's on my list of things to do this weekend as winter approaches. A couple other things. DPW perspective, tomorrow is the last day of this week's Yard Week collection week. The last one until May will take place on December 12th and 13th. I know I beat this drum often, but from a tax dollar saving perspective, in FY 18, residents took 5,500 cubic yards of material off the street, which results in about $120,000 in tax savings, repurposing that material rather than it ending up in transfer station or landfill. So obviously, today is gone, but tomorrow is on for those who have a Thursday collection, and then the last yard waste collection until May of 2019 will take place on the 12th and 13th of December. 2 other things, last things, Public Works related. I really need to thank Hillary Waite, our town's environmental coordinator. The blue bins that everyone received at their homes, or should have received, she literally cut the cost of those in half. As the town was granted a $197,000 Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant from Mass DEP. So I applaud her for that effort. Additionally, she secured another $44,000 to absorb some of the costs for the new mattress recycling initiative that Mass DEP has put municipalities through. So I really have to commend Hillary for not only her work to get those carts out onto the street, but the fact that those carts will ultimately cost the taxpayers $22.50 each, which I think if you go to some of the local stores, they pay significantly more for those. And last but not least, I just want to congratulate the Berkeley family. DPW Director Chase Berkeley and his wife had their 4th child, 3rd daughter, Violet, on Monday. We miss him, but wish him well in his time off with his family.
You two can start your own baseball team.
Right.
You're home and away. You can have both
Right.
sides.
So, thank you. Oh, one more thing. Friday, I will be, all this talk about capital planning and infrastructure work. I'll be attending a conference out at the, I believe it's the Fire Academy in Stowe, Mass. The Capital Planning Conference. It's put on by the Lincoln Institute for Land Policy and the Edward Collins Institute for Public Policy. It's an all-day course out there. One of my instructors will actually be my former DPW chief engineer from Boston, who has forgotten more about capital planning than I'll ever know. So that's where I'll be on Friday.
Have you ever been there before, to Stowe?
I have not.
Oh, you'll be impressed. It's
I
an
played
impressive
golf in
place.
Stowe before, but
It's an
Yeah.
impressive facility. Okay, so to the capital part, just begin tonight's report with, I had just a short meeting, as you know, with Amy the other day, just a little talk about the forecast going forward into 2020. For our new members, well, for my first year when it was Katie, David, and I, we'll plunge right into an override, which was an awful lot of work to do, and this has been a pretty easy ride this year here because we were successful in that, but just the outlook that the forecasters, Amy portrayed it, while we won't have to go into a non-contingent exercise of budgets having to, there will be cuts this year because the requests are going to exceed the demands. So just reemphasizes how tough every fiscal dollar is, and we heard that one more time just in the insurance briefing we had last week with Cook and Company. So that's I thank her for that. I do want to thank Katie and all the members of the Master Plan Implementation Committee. I follow what they do, but that was the first time I've actually got to go to one of your meetings. And I think I went to one morning, one quickly, which was just a budget thing, but you're really doing a lot of good work for the town, and change is not easy, but I've said this often, people don't realize how difficult it can be when you abut an urban city as we do in such a large way, and just the pressures that go back and forth with everything from traffic, parking, building, economics, affordable housing, just so many things. So I thank you and all of them, and Cheryl, everyone on that committee, they asked very good questions, very good questions. On Thursday night, Friday night actually, and this is more of a social thing, I attended what is known as the Gratitude Mass at my brother's keeper, which is a facility at Stonehill College in Easton that provides help and food and services to so many people that it's beyond my description. And Michael's I know you're a little bit familiar with MBK and what they do, but I was overly impressed. There was probably 700 people there. How many residents of this town that I saw when I walked in that? They actually do the Gratitude Mass in the warehouse, where as of this year, they'll reach, just in their Christmas things alone, 140,000 houses they will have visited. So I was very impressed, and thank you to all the residents that I saw there, even some of the more popular ones in town that I was very impressed to see there. And then today I attended, Kevin Cook does yeoman's work here. I don't think anyone can realize how much he does for our veterans, and as we saw on Veterans Day, just how many mums and dads we have of our own kids that are serving in this town. And as the father of a combat Marine, I understand this very much. But today I went to Operation Home Base, which really does a ton for veterans who are returning at Fenway Park, and that's been Kevin's thing this whole month. He grew his beard for him, was shaved November, and I went to that today. They gave almost $250,000 with the Red Sox to Operation Home Base, and I texted Kevin to let him know that I gave him my word I would support that this month. I said, well, I've gone above and beyond for you. I wanted him to know that. And that's pretty much it. That's all I have. I just wanted to and thank all of you as we end this year for everything. There's a lot of work here. As I said at our last meeting, people don't realize how many things come before us and how much you have to roll up your sleeves. And I always like when I get a chuckle out of Katie and say, this is the best full-time, non-paying, part-time job you'll ever have, being on the Board of Selectmen. So thank you to all of you. Mr. Vice Chair.
I don't have anything this evening.
Katie?
I have no report.
Tony?
I just had two questions for Mike. I know you mentioned this town hall tidbits, but an update on the charging station?
yes, nearly completed.
Okay.
Phone conversation with Clay Chase, a gentleman who is actively pursuing our Nissan Leaf. He found a 2000.
Oh, we did?
Yes,
Okay.
he believes he located it. It's a phone conversation tomorrow he's having with the distributor. He's more of a Chevrolet person than he is a Nissan person, but he has tracked it down. It's the, forgive me, Darrell Warner, it's the quick charging vehicle, one that doesn't take
8 hours to charge.
Right. I bumped into Darrell Warner at the Fruit Center yesterday, and I owe him an email about what's going on with the charging station and which one we selected, and, but the vehicle is being located and should be here shortly.
Okay, great. And you mentioned also the residents in Precinct 1, the streets up there, that we're doing the striping on those streets?
We're doing the construction on those streets, yeah, just the weather, 7 Tuesdays in a row of rain, and the consortium haven't done us any favors.
Yeah.
With a little snowstorm in the middle where they were ripping up asphalt. But there is work going on up there, and we have 2 more weeks to complete that work up there. So once again, thank you for reminding me to thank everyone for their patience up in that neighborhood, Truro, Ferncroft.
Excellent, thanks.
Yeah.
Good?
I am, thank you.
Future agenda items? Oh, I went to one, she was, oh,
Can I-
you two,
can
I've
I
got your
add one
body,
more?
I got you down,
This is a future agenda item, but I also forgot to announce that the 2-week public review period for energy aggregation will begin tomorrow. The advertisement will go in the Milton Times, and it will also, the 96-page document will be posted on the town's website. The changes that you had identified, Selectwoman Conlon, were identified and corrected by Mr. O'Rourke before that. So we have an up-to-date version, but what happens during this period is stuff like that will get caught, as well as questions. So on the 26th, when we meet, we'll make an agenda item for public comment period, and then he'll take it to the Department of Public Utilities, if it's so resolved then. So that 2-week period will begin tomorrow and run through December 13th.
Anything else? Katie, anything? Future? Okay. No citizen speak response, so we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And then we're going to call to order a meeting of the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Fund. And we have one item on our agenda, which is the approval of the Governor Stoughton Town Farm Verizon easement. And I take it this is, we've had this before, this is pursuant to the project that's ongoing up there, correct?
It is, and it's, I don't want to.
No, I'm.
It's still a work in progress.
Yeah, we're not ready.
We're not ready to approve it,
Not
so we're
ready,
gonna,
not ready.
okay.
Yeah, if we could
Yeah.
defer that, that would.
So we're gonna defer that?
We have had, I will report, we have had progress. We got an opinion from town council on what our rights in the polls are, and we're gonna pursue that with Verizon.
Okay. This is for the street? What's gonna go in there for poles, right?
Right, and what
Okay.
our rights.
What our rights are
What
to
our
that
rights
pole.
are, and whether we might want to include some of those rights in the easement.
Moving forward, right, I
Yeah.
agree. Okay, so hearing that, do we motion to adjourn?
Seconded,
So moved, we're done.
excellent,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Oh, get your
No, you
pens
don't.
out.
Do you?